Yes, we have a lot going on today. Gonna wait for our superintendent and then we'll get started. All right, get ready. All right, the board is reconvening from closed session at 6:46. Apologize for the delay. We did have some public comments beforehand, and we wanted to make sure we listened to all of that ahead of time. So before proceeding, we're going to go ahead and read our Indigenous land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land currently occupied by Washington Unified School District as the traditional home of the Patwin people. These sovereign people have been caretakers of the area since time immemorial, and despite centuries of genocide and occupation, the Patwin people continue as vibrant and resilient, federally recognized and unrecognized tribes, bands, and rancherias. Today, we honor and recognize our Patwin tribal neighbors for their contribution as caretakers of the Sacramento Valley and honor their sustained existence. With their blessing and continued guidance, Washington Unified School District seeks to provide an accessible, equitable, and supportive institution of learning and experience. And now on to our Pledge of Allegiance. Can I please have Maria Elena Jimenez lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we will go ahead and do a roll call. Vice President Pizzotti.
Here.
Clerk Kirby Gonzalez.
Present.
Trustee Wong.
Here.
Trustee Venegas will be absent today, and I too am present. All right, and as far as the items that took place in closed session, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, WSDA, CSEA, and Management, information was received. And Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Superintendent Goals for 2024-2025, information received. All right, now time for approval of the agenda. Are there any changes that need to be made before it is approved?
I move.
All right, moved by Trustee Wong
I'll second.
and second by Clerk Kirby Gonzalez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I too say aye. All right. And now on to our communications and celebrations. Celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month 2024. Ms. Stacy Tran.
Good evening and buenas tardes. Washington Unified is a district rich in diversity and culture, including over 1,500 students who identify as Hispanic or Latino. Tonight we celebrate the Hispanic culture with student presentations from River City High School and Elkhorn Village. First, we have Maestro Salcido from the World Language Department at River City, joined by one of his students, Michelle Rodriguez Ramirez, with an original poem.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Rodriguez, and the poem that I will be presenting is called Two Worlds Where I Belong. Between two worlds, I stand with pride, a bridge of cultures side by side, Mexican roots, American dreams, in my heart, a vibrant stream. The two flags both mean everything to me. The green, white, and red, they call to me, with stories of my ancestors who once came before me. The red, white, and blue, carrying my hopes and dreams across the seas, a symbol of a future bright, where dreams come true and freedom's light. There isn't one I prefer over the other. They both complete me, make me who I am, though I did question how I could fit into both cultures the correct way. I wandered feeling lost. How could I possibly navigate both paths without leaving one behind? In my mind, two worlds reside, two languages side by side. Spanish whispers, English cheer, in every word, both voices near. In Spanish, there's warmth and flair, in English, clarity and care. Together they form my voice, in this duality I rejoice. In the mirror, I see two faces, caught between two different places. In this blend, I search for what it means. Am I enough for either side? In both worlds, I try to find myself, yet sometimes I feel like I don't belong. Do I belong in that class? Do I belong in this community? What is the right way to fit into both? I look around to see people full of ideas, one by one coming together, while I sit in silence thinking how they could know so much. My two beautiful languages, Spanish being my first, teaching me everything I know, English later coming in, I feel weak and strong all at once. How can I know so much and feel like I know nothing at all? Knowing two languages should make me feel bright, but in this space, I feel the gap. Words I need, I cannot tap. In both worlds, I try to belong, hoping one day the struggle will end. It takes time to realize that I do belong in both worlds, one carrying my beautiful roots, while the other carries my hopes and dreams. I do belong, in every way, in both worlds I find a say, for I am both, and both are me. In this beautiful blend, I am free.
Ay, chiquita, that was beautiful. And it definitely resonates so much. So thank you for sharing those wise words.
Sure, beautiful. Next up, we have our group from Elkhorn Village, led by Miss Jody Figueroa and Bianca Garcia.
Should we go down there? Can we go down there? Okay, we're going down there.
So then do I speak that way or?
No.
Okay. Do I speak this? My name's Jody Figueroa, and I work at Elkhorn Elementary, and I have a few students performing ballet folklorico today.
Excuse me, can we do a group photo real quick with the students? Is there another? All eyes on the.
So thank you, parents, padres. Muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad de ver a tus hijos bailar con nosotros o por nosotros. Que se vaya bien, okay? That was beautiful. The poem was amazing. For those of us who've had that struggle in your head when you have a word and you're like, I know it in Spanish, but I don't know it in English. And then you're like, wait, but there is no translation. It's really hard. And then, yeah, and then especially when you start having to be that translator for your parent, and you're like, well, do I really want to let them know? Do I really want to tell them? Just kidding. That's not true. We don't do that. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to our association reports. We're going to start with CSEA. President Gandara.
Is this on? Yeah, it's
Yes.
on. So, good evening, President Coffey, Superintendent Hildreth, Cabinet, Board of Trustees. I want to address something that's came up recently. So, on July 25th, the board approved a restorative justice TOSA position that I believe is housed at Riverbank. And my concerns and my understanding with this position, it was discussed initially at a site cost community school meeting, which I didn't know we were creating positions at site community school meetings. And I've received feedback that it was discussed, then voted on at a community schools meeting. Now, I have a couple issues with the way the position of the process was created. So the first one is I didn't know site cost meetings were a place where positions were created and voted on. My understanding that the steering committee's meetings were for that. And the site cost meetings were for recommendation meetings to take to the steering committee. And if not, and the decision is made at the site meetings, then why are we even having steering committee meeting? If we're figuring everything out at the site level, why are we even wasting our time, honestly, at site or at a cost meeting or a steering committee meeting? The second thing I want to bring up is, or the second thing about it is, I bring this up because the job description for the TOSA restorative justice was created, and there's a lot of overlap with current classified positions. And we encountered this, I believe, when the community school facilitator, I believe that's the name of the position, was created. And it was brought to both labor groups, and we worked collectively and figured out whose bargaining unit it would be in, and then we proceeded there. I bring this up because the overlap is restorative meetings, restorative conversation, assist with MTSS, PBIS, and make recommendations for student support. There are many other overlapping duties that I'm not going to list because there's actually a lot of them. And I just want to ask the district and this board, I want to make a comment that when a student services position is going to be created, you sit down with both in the initial conversations, sit down with both labor groups So we can figure out the scope and the duties and the overlap, because we all understand there's overlap. We understand that. But, 30% overlap is, okay, I can live with it. When we start hitting, 75, 80, 85% of overlap, that's a discussion. So that's what I ask. I ask that moving forward, any position that is created that affects student services, we both meet together and we kind of figure out whose bargaining unit it would lay in. And just the last item I'm going to bring up tonight is just staff safety. I believe it was April of last year, I addressed this. I brought it up. I brought up concerns with students going in offices, students, how do I say it, misbehaving in classrooms and really assaulting my paraeducators and my members. That hasn't changed. We're a month and a month and 2 weeks, a month and a week into the new school year. It hasn't changed. I've had emails nonstop. Obviously there's been situations at school sites. And at some point, my classified staff and certificate and teachers also, they shouldn't have to be subject to abuse in a classroom. At some point, we as a district need to figure out how we are going to handle this. Because again, I believe there are 2 resignations for paraeducators on this board agenda for, under the classified recommendations. I ask you guys, look up the last 6 board meetings. How many paraeducators had quit? Because at the pay I get, I wouldn't deal with it. I wouldn't deal with getting hit and beat and assaulted. So at some point, we have to figure out as a district what is going on. What is going on with our students and how do we protect our staff? With that, you guys have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for our WSTA. President Knapp.
Good evening, President Coffey, Vice President Pizzotti, Cabinet, Trustees. Today held with I'm all out of order. Put up whenever order I want. First of all, thank you for giving me the time to talk. Sometimes I forget to acknowledge that. It's a privilege to be able to speak before you. I want to start out by saying in light of the presentations and performances we had, happy Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. I know you probably feel the same way, but sometimes we get all bogged down in all the stuff we're doing, and then we remember the rich diversity of culture we have in our community, and it's really rewarding to see. So let's make sure we celebrate that and remember the percentage of our population that is represented by different cultures, and let that reflect the way we do business. I wanted to talk a little bit about our contractors again, just to remind folks that we should be constantly looking at how we use district resources and whether or not it's necessary to contract out to outside agencies to find our resources and to look internally at if we have the capacity to meet those needs here. I also wanted to ask, because I'm very concerned and folks have reached out to me, we have a SPED task force, and apparently some of our contractors have been invited to the SPED task force. And although I'm really glad to work together on things, I'm not sure that I think that we should be using our resources and enforcing the situation we have with contractors. Apparently we're using contractors right now because we have a need and there's no other choice, is what I'm being told. But I don't think that they should be part of the decision-making process in our district. They're not, we already train them and gear them up to find other jobs elsewhere. We basically getting them ready for other careers. And I don't think that they should, I'm sorry to say this because I'm an inclusive person, but have a say in how we make decisions on SPED. They are not part of WUSD. Sounds harsh, but it's real. I wanted to follow up with what Daniel said about safety in the district. I am also hearing concerns about teachers and professional staff being assaulted and hurt by students. And listen, it's our responsibility to serve all students. It's our responsibility to find out how to reach them and how to help them. But there's little things that we can do. And last year, I resolved a grievance at Riverbank that said that any student transfers that are going from one school to another should come with their behavior plan. So teachers know how not to trigger student behavior. Teachers know how not to back students into a corner and know what works. And I am already hearing this year that teachers are receiving transfer students without information about their behavior. And a lot of our transfers are coming with behavioral issues, and that's why they're transferring. The least we can do is make sure that we understand our students so that we can try and reach them, and so that our teachers are equipped to do so. So I'm asking for a follow-up on that. Another issue, and this kind of, I've heard some issues about some of our contractors with this as well as others. You probably know, but there's ed code language about interruptions in the classroom, and unnecessary interruptions are not supposed to occur because it impacts student learning. And I understand our sites are impacted, but we have constant interruptions in some of our sites where students and support staff and contractors are walking through classes because offices happen to be in the middle of a classroom or somewhere else, and classroom instruction is constantly being interrupted because maybe speech and language pathology is happening in an office that is only accessible from a classroom. This is a violation of ed code, and I understand we have facilities issues, but it can't be at the expense of our student learning. And I'm also hearing I'm hearing that some of our contract workers are being pretty disrespectful and rude to classroom teachers in the process. So I don't represent them, so I have no problem saying that's got to stop. I want to congratulate and thank the board on their decision not to go forward with the River Point property. It was far too expensive. I'm glad that we're going to continue to look at the other options, and I think the other options are more reasonable, and I think we can move forward. I would urge the board to consider, since that we're going to save so much money, if we do go with the CalSTRS building, that we cover parking for families who are coming to visit the district office. That's fantastic. Now I know where to park. Yes. I just want to thank Cheryl for that moment of levity. Got a little tense the last board meeting. I think we're all coming from a place of passion and care about students. I would like to urge the board, I still haven't, it's been 2 weeks, and I thought we were going to move pretty quickly. I haven't heard about any projects for community engagement. I would like to hear about a parent night announced to figure out getting input from parents. That was a promise made. And I know it's only 2 weeks, but we put money behind this, right? I think so. I wasn't entirely clear what happened, but I think we put money behind this initiative. So it's time to get to work and make sure our parents are heard, and our families are heard, and our students are heard. All right. I was a little fired up last board meeting, and I want to make sure I acknowledge. I started my comments at the last board meeting thanking community schools for all the efforts that they're giving and for the improvements that have happened. And then in my comments, I made it sound like some of the community schools leaders weren't totally engaged when I said that they had given up in the process of trying to engage parents. And from the leadership, I don't hear that. I will say there was a couple individuals that I heard that said they had given up in that process, but it wasn't from Dr. Mascareñas or June Flores or any of those folks. So I just wanted to make a correction there. I wanted to celebrate the youth employment summit It sounds like Trustee Wong and Cheryl Hildreth were able to talk to 49 students from Yolo, River City, and Washington Middle College High School. And it sounds like we really were able to listen to some issues about student concerns about bullying and cyberbullying and not feeling heard. So I know it means a lot for leaders to be there, for students to hear, to see that leaders are listening to them. So thank you very much, both of you, for being there. I don't know why it says Youth Employment Summit. I don't think that it's a Youth Employment Summit. Empowerment, thank you. That's voice to text. So, yeah. Let's see. Something that I'm hearing a lot of this year, and I've never heard before, but maybe it's because I'm at sites more, is I'm hearing our new teachers who are at some of our most challenging schools report to me that they don't feel supported in the way they need. And I'm concerned that some of our administrators are trying to support them, but maybe don't understand the support they need. And I've seen some emails to new teachers that are basically just a checklist of failures. And I'm telling you, I've seen this several times. And in the context of an email, you're getting, hey, I was in your class for a few minutes. I saw students walking around. They weren't on task. They were crazy. You weren't seeming to pay attention to those sorts of things. That, obviously that is not support, right? These are brand new teachers. I've been there. Some of you, Sarah, I know you've been there. When you're new, you don't know what you don't know. And that is not support. So I'm urging some professional development for some of our administrators. I know they're overwhelmed and they're at sites that are challenging, but listen, teachers need professional development, so do administrators. Sometimes we forget that they're humans and they need support as well. And I'm asking for us to consider that because we are losing new teachers at sites where we need to keep them. Those students deserve to have building relationships. And we've already lost some at some sites, and I hear some that are talking about wanting to leave already. We need to look at what support is. And try better. Let's see. I wanted to acknowledge, I don't always agree with my members on everything they come up and talk to you about in public comments, and I don't always agree with my leaders. But the one thing that I could tell you is that they always come up here in advocacy for students. None of them are coming to a board meeting to talk to you because they're making money. They're not coming to talk to you because they have some kind of inside job. They're coming to tell you how they feel. And I want you to recognize that because we may not always agree, but there's a point where we need to all celebrate and put our arms around each other that we're supporting students and we're trying to do the best by students, and remember that. And with that being said, I want to remind the board, because it seems like it needs a reminder, that privilege isn't an insult, the word. I'm going to say that again. Privilege isn't an insult. It's an acknowledgement. I have privilege. I'm not ashamed of it. I have a good life. It's okay. I'm not feeling guilty about my privilege. But I do recognize the things that I don't have to consider every time I walk out my door. The things that I don't have to consider when I'm driving my car or when I'm paying for something. It's a recognition. We all have privilege at different points, no matter what we look like, no matter what the color of our skin is or our upbringing, there's points of privilege that we all have. And if we can acknowledge that, we can hear other people. We can hear them, and we can see them. And that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, and now we are going to move on to our public comments. And I read the public comment disclaimer earlier prior to our closed session, so I will not read it again. It's the same thing. So, Christina. No.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Our first public comment is Pavin. Pavin, sorry.
Good evening, board members. My name is Pavin Sandhu. I'm here representing a group of concerned parents at Sacramento Valley Charter School. We deeply appreciate the work that you do, and we want to engage with you to improve accountability, transparency, and parental involvement in our school. Parents are struggling with lack of transparency from Sacramento Valley Charter Schools Board. Key decisions, especially financial ones, aren't communicated clearly or accessibly. I urge you to demand more openness and transparency in communication from the Sacramento Valley Charter School, ensuring board meetings are more accessible, records are shared, and decisions are explained to the school community. For example, last board meeting, they removed the ability to log on from Zoom. While we have one parent on the board, that alone isn't enough. A single voice doesn't represent the full spectrum of parental perspectives or concerns. We need the board to ensure that parents can be more involved in the decision-making process, particularly through direct elections to the board. As an authorizing body, Washington Unified School District holds a key role in ensuring SVCS is accountable not only to the state, but to the parents it serves. We ask that the Washington Unified School District increase its oversight to ensure Sacramento Valley Charter School upholds the principles of transparency and democratic governance, which are foundational to public schools. Currently, the Washington Unified School District Board doesn't really have a mention of Sacramento Valley Charter School, nor has the school unfortunately celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month. Coming here today, and my kids being half Mexican and half Punjabi makes me pretty sad that our school hasn't even acknowledged Hispanic Heritage Month, and I think you guys would feel the same. The current bylaws limit democratic participation and keep decision-making within a closed circle. This needs to change to reflect the community's values. We need Washington Unified School District Board to support bylaw reforms that allow for more parental involvement in elected board members and influencing school policies. I'm here to ask for your support and intervention in improving governance at SVCS, greater transparency, accountability, and parental involvement that will ensure SVCS continues to serve our children's best interests. Thank you.
Excuse me if I may, is there any way to watch online at all other than Zoom?
As of the last board meeting, no. They removed that ability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was going to sneeze earlier. Our next public comment. Sorry.
You just got buzzed.
I know. Okay. It's okay.
Jeanette Hunt.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jeanette Hunt. I am a parent and PTO board member at Bridgeway, and I'm also here representing another group of concerned parents who share a similar concern, and that is that the students at Bridgeway don't have access to an enclosed grassy field area. I know some of you guys have been made aware of this issue, but we wanted to bring it to the board as a whole in hopes of commitment to move forward with a solution. Bridgeway is adjacent to a city park. However, it's open on 3 sides to different streets, and that, causes a safety concern. We appreciate our physical education teachers who they do take their classes out to the field for PE, but that puts an extra burden and safety risk on the teachers to assure that they're keeping their classes contained. There were a couple of incidents last year where an SDC student was found out in the field by themselves. Our children don't have access to regular schoolyard games like tag, soccer, football, because it's an injury concern, and we completely understand, right, why the staff is making that decision, but this concern keeps coming to the PTO. I think right now it's a little elevated because we don't have a playground yet. So literally, our kids for recess, they can run around Blacktop right now. The PTO board is committed and willing to support a solution
in any way possible. Our proposed solution is working with the city to fence in a portion of that field with some gates so that it could still be accessible to the public outside of school hours. Last year when we met with some district leadership, the idea of a 2x2 was brought up. And as parents, I don't know if we have any authority to be on a 2x2, but if we do, we would certainly be willing to put somebody on there to move the process forward. We had a couple parents put together a written proposal that includes a solution, how to get to that solution, what it might look like, what it might cost, potential funding options. We will share that with you guys very soon. The PTO is also willing to provide or help provide funding for this solution, whether it's through our fundraising efforts, whether it's through finding other funding options like grants. We achieved a grant last year, and we think that we can do the same thing for this specific project. One of the PTO's goals is just to provide the best learning environment where our kids can thrive. And we really hope that we can get your sponsorship to move forward with a solution for this as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Amber Bradley.
Of student work that I wanted to show you all, so I'm bringing you all.
Are they all the same? Okay. Only asking so we don't have to pass them. This is mine. Thank you.
All right, good evening, school board and Dr. Hildreth. I'm Amber Bradley, a government teacher at River City High School. I would like to start today by thanking June Flores, Tajinder Gag, and Margarita Ortega for attending the Yolo County Youth Empowerment Summit yesterday. It was my second year having the opportunity to bring my kids to meet their local government officials. A special thanks to Dr. Hildreth and Trustee Jackie Wong for being in attendance. Thank you so much. They spent time with our kids, they got to hear about their concerns, and my kids walked away feeling empowered. They felt like, wow, elected people really care about what we think. It was really cute, and it was great for me as their government teacher to see them become civically engaged. So I got to walk away a proud teacher as well. So thank you so much for coming. Today, I have provided you all with examples of my students' work. Their amendment projects they completed in my class. Today's examples are just the First Amendment, which covers 5 rights, one of which is the ability to petition the government for a redress of grievances. This was based on England's Magna Carta from the year 1215 and came into prominence in the 1830s in the United States as the abolitionists addressed Congress with petitions against slavery in the 1830s. On January 28, 1840, the House of Reps attempted to prevent constituents from petitioning their government to stop this heinous policy. This censoring was repealed 5 years later, as it was a clear violation of the First Amendment. Likewise, in this chamber, a member of your governing board has attempted to silence me and tell me what I am not allowed to speak about. I, like the abolitionists before me, have the constitutional right to petition my government for a redress of grievances. When I come to speak to you all, I speak from the standpoint of protecting my students. I am not here speaking as a WSTA representative. Therefore, telling my union president to handle me if I ever want a future position in leadership is not only unacceptable, but it's an abuse of power. If you have an issue on my comments with privilege, discussing the matter with him is an incorrect place to address your concerns. So tonight, I have also provided you with a copy of the Wheel of Power and Privilege. The citations are attached at the bottom. This might help some of you understand the way intersectionality impacts all of us and how we see the world. In the circle center is power. The closer you are to the middle, the more power you have. The further away, the more marginalized you become. This does not mean that having privilege means you haven't suffered through hard times. It means the closer you are to the center, the more people will listen to you and your opinions. Most of us have some privilege, and it's not a bad word. It's simply something that must be acknowledged. Having privilege means you have the benefit or advantage that other people do not. The marginalized are the most affected by systematic discrimination. I sincerely hope you take some time to read over the resources I have provided you. I will continue to give mini lessons as long as you need them. Again, I hope you survey your community and gather input from those impacted by your policies, not just the privileged few. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jonica. Patrice.
Let me restart the timer, please. Sorry. Thank you. No worries. Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Patrice Griffith, and I'm the parent of a River City graduate and a current River City student and invested community member. I want to comment on the recent decision to relocate district offices to CalSTRS, because if chosen as the actual new temporary district office location, I am actually asking the board to consider paying for parking for district employees, as well as teachers, staff, and visitors. One way this can be accomplished is by using a portion of the $908,000 in rent savings from River Point, which is no longer an option, to CalSTRS. Additional savings of approximately $250,000 based on the size of the footprint and the furniture needed would come as additional savings and can also be used. Of course, parking will be nowhere near that amount. I also wanted to inform you of my ongoing efforts with law enforcement, Impact SAT, which took place over the last year, and now with the Yolo County Office of Education. I am working to bring a larger group of students to an impactful Student Voices event where students district-wide in grades 7 to 12 will meet with police officers, school board members, political leaders to discuss policy. This is my second year organizing this event after taking students in grades 7 through 12 last year from throughout the district, and I look forward to continued success. This leads me also to speak on my work with local law enforcement officers and ongoing collaborative work we have been engaged in. As a parent, I support continuous efforts to ensure our schools are safe and want to see an increase in counseling services and offer those services on site to students and families. This coincides with opinions of students who voluntarily attended yesterday's Yolo County Youth Empowerment Summit. These students, who asked that they be trusted and respected, expressed the need for mental health services, in particular, which I thought was interesting, to damage caused by cyberbullying. When false reports of harming others occur, when assumptions made versus talking to one another, or gossip is spread, which is a harmful way to spread flames of hate, it causes division, confusion, and a deterioration of one's mental health. Hearing these words from students made me realize that some of those kids are more responsible and, dare I say, more mature than some adults. As adults, we have the ability as well as responsibility to help answer the cries of our students, to speak respectfully, listen intently, and not play a role in spreading false information or assumptions of hate. This leads me to my last item as a gentle reminder of the support that students received in the No Room for Hate campaign, which they hope will continue throughout this academic year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
There's no more public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're moving on to the public hearing. Forget. Hit the gavel, I know. I now open this public hearing on the sufficiency of instructional materials as mandated by Williams Settlements. Assistant Superintendent Street.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Hildreth, community and staff. Tonight I stand before you in accordance with California Ed Code pursuant to the Williams Settlement. The Washington Unified School District is required to hold a public hearing by the 8th week of the school year. The purpose of the hearing is for the governing board to adopt a resolution determining that every student has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials in the core subject areas of reading, mathematics, science, and history and social science. The board must also make a determination regarding the sufficiency of health and foreign language textbooks for every enrolled student, as well as the availability of science lab equipment for grades 9 through 12. Earlier this school year, instructional material sufficiency reviews were conducted at the following school sites: Riverbank and Westmore Oaks on August 29th, Elkhorn Village and Stonegate on August 30th, and Westfield Village on September 3rd. Public notice of the hearing has been posted and published according to the required timeline. The administration recommends that the board hold the mandated public hearing to make the necessary determinations regarding instructional material sufficiency for the current school year.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
No public comments.
All right, well then wait, are there any public from the board? All right, well this concludes our public hearing on the sufficiency of instructional material. And now on for information discussion items. Review of the 2024-2025 Comprehensive School Site Safety Plan. Dr. Jay Burns.
Hey. President Coffey, trustees, Superintendent Hildreth, thank you for having me. Last year, you tasked us with, when we brought forward the plans for review, that you asked us, please bring them forward to us first for review, and then bring them back 2 weeks later for approval. So that's what we're doing this year. So the safety and well-being of students and staff remain at the highest priority for WSD. In line with this, each WSD school has carefully developed and updated its comprehensive school safety plan for the 2024-2025 school year, incorporating feedback from administration, staff, site safety teams as required by the Education Code. Okay? And they're updated annually and must receive approval from the local Board of Education to ensure they effectively address the unique needs of each school. Key elements of these plans include protocols for child abuse reporting, disaster preparedness, student entry and exit safety, sexual harassment prevention, school discipline, and other mandated safety measures. Throughout the process, site safety teams collaborated with local law enforcement, keyword collaborated, consulted, fire departments and first responders, and we even had a consultant support us as well. The 2024-2025 CSSPs being submitted for review prior to approval have been thoroughly designed to meet the specific safety requirements of each WSD school. Review of these plans will officially integrate them into the district's broader strategy to create a safe, positive learning environment for all students. Therefore, a review, the keyword review, of the 2024-2025 comprehensive school safety plans for all WSD schools is strongly recommended. Okay? And let's take it through and show you where we're at. So today, our overview, as we discussed, is annual review of comprehensive school safety plans by the board. Okay? Each school must forward the adopted plan to the school district for approval. The CDE recommends, bolded keyword, the plan to be approved by the Board of Education before October 15th. Goal is to review it tonight, bring it back to you in 2 weeks in the next board meeting for approval. Next slide, please. As you see, safety aligns with everything we do. We've heard it tonight. Safety in the classroom, safety on the campus, safety on the fields, whatever. Safety, safety, safety. Everything we do, safety first, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Next slide. And these are our priorities and key actions that have to do with it. And you start thinking about data, right? Start looking at our data to inform our decisions about safety. We're looking for equity and access for all and accountability, right? We're always talking about these things. We got to be safe. Next slide. Okay, all staff must be trained on the Comprehensive School Safety Plan, CSSP. Updated school safety plans should be reviewed and practiced regularly by all staff and students. The school site council must develop the comprehensive school safety plan or may be delegated this responsibility to a safety committee. The safety committee is generally comprised of a parent, a classified staff member, a certificated staff member, and an administrator or administrative designee. Each school must review and update and adopt its plan by March 1 every year. Just so you know, this is an ever-growing plan. It's real time. We're constantly looking at the plan and making changes throughout the year. It never stops. As you know, and we've discussed in the past, we consult regularly with the West Sac PD. And as things come up, we have further discussions. And if things need to be tweaked in the plan, we tweak them or change them or update them. The CDE recommends the plan to be approved by the Board of Education before October 15th. Share the safety plans at the school site with parents and guardians, parent-principal coffees, site council meetings, PTO, any kind of meeting we can get it out there. Next slide, please. The CSSP must include the following components: assessment of the current status of school suspensions. So right now we're going after last year's data, but we're constantly looking at our suspension data. And we even have a program called SWIS where we're constantly looking at the behaviors on campus, trying to identify them, what time of day, when did they happen, how often, and then we're trying to address those concerns. Assessment of safety at school-related events. We met recently, before the school year started, before football season started, to talk about athletic with the West Sac PD. At the meeting, we also reviewed our standard response protocols. These are the kind of things we're constantly doing, talking about after-school activities. Child abuse and neglect reporting procedures, disaster procedures, routine and emergency plans, and crisis response plan with adaptations for pupils with disabilities. That's key in there. What do you do with the child if they're in a wheelchair, they have a walker, if they're blind or they're deaf? What do we do? And we have to write that into our plan. Earthquake emergency procedures, fire and safety drills. Next slide, please. Okay, procedures to allow a public agency to use school buildings, grounds, and equipment during an emergency. This is a constant evolving with emergency services, EOS. And we're trying to have those discussions, and the county's actually bringing that discussion up again. We're still waiting for what that looks like. But county had some meetings last year talking about what are we going to do if they need to take over a campus and utilize it. And those are right out there right now. Suspension, expulsion policies and procedures. Procedures to notify teachers of dangerous students. We have a thing called behavior alert. Behavior alert comes out, teachers get notified. Has to be notified per the ed code. Procedures for conducting tactical responses to criminal incidents. Discrimination and harassment policy that includes hate crimes, reporting procedures and policies. School-wide dress code that includes prohibition of gang-related apparel. Procedure for safe ingress and egress when kids come and leave school. Key word. Maintenance of a safe and orderly environment. Orderly. Rules and procedures on school discipline. Next slide, please. So the key tonight, when you start looking at these plans and you're going to say, what's the key changes in here? We've updated them with our standard response protocols. It's called I Love You Guys is what we're going through. And we've updated our standard response protocols. We've met with the West Sac PD on several occasions now, reviewed our standard response protocols, even had the fortune of having one of our consultants in there with us to support us with this discussion. And we've gone through them. So now we're looking at our standard response protocols. Before we talked about run, hide, fight, and we decided, let's look at our standard response protocols: secure, cold, hold, shelter in place, lockdown, evacuate, those kind of keys. We've been training, working, and we're constantly working on having these discussions. Like I said, it's an evolving plan, and it's constantly being tweaked as we learn things or things come up that need to make changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
None received.
Do you have any comments from the board?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. My question was going to be, were there any big changes from last year to this year? So I appreciate you already answered that. So my question would be, in terms of the standard response protocols, I know you're working to train, you said, staff on that. When can we expect that to be done in terms of district-wide? Is there a timeline you're working on with that? And then the second part of that question would be, how do you go about the challenge of training our guest teachers, our substitutes who are classified and certificated?
It's a great question. So last week, I met with the various different administrators who oversee school site safety. And one of the questions was, when a parent comes on campus as a volunteer, what does that look like? How do they know what to do in an emergency situation? So we have a one-pager that they've all created. Same for our classified staff. Look, we all know this. When our substitutes come on, we're good about substitute folders. But now we've talked about having a classified staff folder for, say, paraeducators, volunteers who come, and then volunteers. a one-pager that lets them know what to do. And then the other thing you're going to see is our standard response protocols are posted all over the campus. The next thing we're looking at is maybe a sticker that we create and put on the back of staff ID cards, student ID cards, everything. Your other question was the training. We've gone through training. Everybody's staff has been trained. Everybody's been trained. Our consultant came out, trained them, and then we had a video that we put out there, back out to them for video, to give them, to get them up to date, and for those who are new, to get them up to speed on what our standard response protocols are. So we have a brief 15, 20-minute video that we share. We're also doing our Catapult EMS training. First, we did our site safety team training, online training for site safety teams. Then we did training with our site safety teams, and now we're doing all staff training on this. Our consultant is actually coming out, and our campuses are signing up, and he's coming out and he's running drills. He's auditing drills with the staff on the campuses and working with the administrators. We're also working with Catapult EMS to work with Catapult EMS on utilizing Catapult EMS as the emergency tool that we utilize to account for every student, every staff member on that campus. And we can figure out where things are going on, communicate, and we don't have to pick up a cell phone. We're not going there. We're communicating through this tool. What else? Keep going. Keep going. These are good questions.
No, that answered my question, so thank you. And then as a follow-up to that, just, I know it's not the extensive training, that piece, but could the board have access to that, maybe video, the refresher piece, just to understand kind of the language and what's, okay.
Yeah, definitely. We want you to have access to that. And the amazing Yorgos has communicated with the parents in the past, and we were talking about sharing more safety information with parents over the near future. And one of those will be like our standard response protocols and how we handle things, because we want people to be educated. One of the things with the I Love You guys is making sure that the community is trained and they're aware. Because there's going to be times that we might put out an emergency script, push it out to all our parents and say, please, this is what's going on our campus right now. Please stay away. You know, we don't want you bombarding the campus, showing up. This is how we're dealing with it.
I think that's helpful because families, I know some families think about wanting to text their kids right away and hear right away from them. And so I think communication with them is important early, because if there's a true serious safety issue, we want them focused on like what is needed to be done, you know? And so I think communicating with families so that they rest assured that we will get a communication out to you as soon as possible, that we're working on this. But, you know, ideally you're not hearing from your kid, because we want them, you know, following the direction of what they need to do in class until they're in a good, safe spot, and we've made sure. But I know that that's a challenge right now, because families, of course, get anxious when they hear there's a lockdown. Our kids are anxious. They want to check in with their families. So it's kind of a complex thing, and it always looks different, right? There might be a soft lockdown or something. Maybe that's not the term we use, but there might be a case where kids are in a room quiet versus,
we're using the terminology
hearing.
secure.
Yeah. So, but I think those are important conversations to have with our families too, and to educate them about what that looks like and what they can expect from there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other? I have one
Yes.
or two. So the school site council, they're the ones that must develop a comprehensive school safety plan, or they may delegate this responsibility to a safety committee. If the school site council is to develop this plan, do they have parameters with statutes and regulations that they're supposed to adhere by to ensure that they're in compliance with their safety plan?
Yes, the ed code is shared with them. So when we go through this and I sit down with the administrators, it's very clear, and I'd have to go back to the slide, but when it talks about what is required in that school safety code, in the ed code requires what is required in that plan. And then we have a template that we utilize. And like I said, we're constantly updating that template throughout the year. So if new things come out, like having a plan to do with students with disabilities, we add it in. When we had changes to harassment policies or whatever, those are constantly being updated. Anything you can think of. So yes, and it's constantly coming out from CDE, and they're apprising us what needs to do. So what happens is CDE puts it out, and then we apprise our teams of it. But we also work on it together. We've been working on this together and updating this throughout the year. And in June, we really dug in, knowing that we want to be ready for when everybody gets back in August, so that you can go over it with the staff. I don't want to wait for the last.
Right, yeah, no, and I get that, and I think that's really important, especially since laws do change often, but there are some laws that have been constant, and we want to make sure that we're still keeping with those ones as well.
Yes.
And with communication, I understand the communication with regarding large incidences, and we don't want parents to come bombard. How do we handle small incidences that are more, maybe 1 or 2 students? Do we have a safety plan for those types of incidences?
Yeah.
Do we follow up with parents or anything like that? Is that also included in this?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. So in a situation where you have an incident, we determine we have to sit down and we have some great conversations. We will huddle up as a team and discuss what is the best communication. Is this an all school? Is this an all district wide communication? Is this a school wide? Is this a middle school communication? Is it elementary? Is it a grade level, or is it a classroom communication? If that's what you're asking.
I'm asking more of like my kid individual with another kid individual, and there is a safety incident that may result in something that there's some kind of safety issue that could have happened. Is there any communication that is in a safety plan? Without giving specifics, I'm just trying to find out, do we have processes in place to make sure that parents are aware of any type of incident that can occur where it could have, their child may have been unsafe at school individually?
Yeah, and that's part of the safety plan communication. So
Okay.
we talk about the chain of command. What does communication look like? When do you communicate, and how often do you communicate? Yes.
Okay. Because I'm bringing up this because I've heard that there are some incidences that take place at school sites, and they are small. It's not large scope, so I don't expect a large district-wide email or text or anything. But children are going home and informing their parents of an incident that took place when their child, or the parent shouldn't be hearing it from the child, but should be hearing it from the school site specifically. And what they're finding out is that their child was unsafe in that incident. And yes, there were things that happened after, but it wasn't until the parent got involved that there was communication. So I'm just trying to make sure that our safety plan also includes not just the large things, but also the small incidences that can occur day to day without, in between things. So that's what I'm asking. Like, do we have something?
Yes.
Is that in the plans as well?
That's in the plans. We talk about what that level of communication looks
Okay.
like. Emergency scripts, once again, planning how soon you should get that out. Look, in the world we live in, we're trying to get out ahead of social media,
Right.
right? And that's instantaneous. So we're constantly working, and I keep looking at Yorgos, but we're constantly trying to get ahead of things and apprise our community of what's going on. Because we don't want things getting out there that aren't going on and then hysteria happening. And you're
Right.
100% correct. We want to make sure that we're getting ahead of it, notifying parents so that they're aware, and first and foremost that your child is safe.
I think the question's slightly different. So
Yeah,
if there's a verbal
that's-
altercation,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
you're not necessarily writing that individual verbal, process for verbal altercation in the SIPSA, right?
Right. I hear what
So, yeah, that's the question. If there's like a safety issue between two people that don't require, is that in the SIPSA?
No, not
Oh, sorry,
specifically.
the school, the school safety.
Safety plan.
Yeah,
No, not specifically. But what you're
I
saying
think that's
is,
the question.
I would call it Administrator 101. Always notify parents and get ahead of things. I don't want any child going home and notifying their parents something. I don't want to, old saying as an administrator is, you don't want to hear it
false
from your
response,
child
yeah.
first.
What was that?
Yeah, just so I think I'm wondering if the question is if there is an incident, like where are the instructions of how do you notify parents when there's a smaller incident?
Yeah.
Not necessarily in this massive plan.
And I'm not necessarily talking about like a fight. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
I'm talking about an incident where there was something that, okay, let's go ahead and say a student cut themselves and there's bodily fluid, a cut. And they thought it was funny and they went around and they were like, to all the other kids. Now we have a health issue type of incident. Is that what I'm asking is there something in the safety plan for those types of situations? And are we training our staff to ensure that they know what to do in those cases? And if I was the parent of my child was to come to me and tell me, oh, so-and-so, had their bloody finger and they were like wiping it all over me, and there was somebody who knew of that, what are the steps, or is that in here, is what I'm asking?
And I can tell you specifically for that one, yes. Bloodborne pathogens, yes.
Yes. Okay, that's what I'm asking, is like something
I'm
like that
sorry,
without
my
getting
apologies.
into, so thank you.
Yeah.
And that's all my questions. Anything else? Good? All right. Thank you, Dr.
So just for knowledge, some of the plans are locked up because you don't want people to accessible so that they can actually plan. I think that's important to know.
Right.
It's not just on our website. Sometimes people want to know, like, where's it on a website? Well, if they could access it, that means anybody who is wanting to do harm on the school site can also. So I think that it's just good to, like, as people are learning what this process is, you get a lot of questions about where's my plan, why isn't it public? I think it's important to kind of highlight the protocol of how we actually give out school site safety plans, because that's part of the assessment, right? We over the years, we've gotten a lot of those questions, like, why isn't it transparent?
Yeah, in the world we live in, unfortunately, we try to get those up as fast as we can and take them down because we really don't want people knowing some of the things in our plans. As ridiculous as that may sound, that's the world we live in. Evacuation plans, all those kind of things. But a parent, guardian, caregiver always has the right to make an appointment with a school administrator and come and see that plan. And they set up an appointment, please come in. And if they have any problems, contact me, and we'll get them access to that plan so they can see it. Thank you.
And we track everybody who actually asks for it.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to consent agenda. Are there any public comments?
None received.
Okay. Are there any comments from the board? All right. Moved by trustee Wong,
I'll second.
second by clerk Kirby Gonzalez. And all those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. Moving on to action items.
And donate socks to Oktoberfest.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's on the
That's on the consent. Now we can do it.
action items, approval of resolution number 2425-33, adopting the gain limit for the 2023-24 and the 2024-25 fiscal years. Ms. Monique Stovall.
Thank you and good evening. The GAN limit is an annual approval, an annual resolution that's related to our unaudited actuals. It came about in 1979. And it's a requirement to do a specific calculation related to the income that we receive, ensuring that it doesn't go above a certain level related to tax receipts. It's not as relevant anymore, but we are still required by law to ask for your approval of a resolution, and that's what we're doing this evening.
All right, are there any public comments?
None received.
Are there any comments from the board?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Moved by clerk Kirby Gonzalez, second by trustee Wong. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. Right. Stay up there. Approval of the adoption of resolution number 2425-34, certification of signatures. Ms. Monique Stovall.
Thank you. As our administration changes, we've welcomed our new Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Therefore, we need to change the authorized signatures. Therefore, we're asking for your approval of this resolution for our certification of signatures.
All right, are there any public comments?
None received.
All right, do we have any comments from the board? No. All right, no comments. Second, or moved by trustee Wong, second by Vice President Pizzotti. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. All right, next one. Approval of the unaudited actuals financial report, fiscal close for fiscal year 2023-24. Monique Stovall.
Thank you. This evening, I am joined by our Director of Fiscal Services, Billy Duba, to present to you the unaudited actuals for last year. Just as a reminder, it's called the unaudited actuals simply because the auditors have yet to audit our actual expenditures and revenue last year. Next slide. The budget aligns with every section of our strategic plan. Therefore, we do have all of the boxes and goals for student success, equity principles, and our pillars checked here. Slide. And it covers all of our 12 strategic priorities. Next slide. Every fiscal presentation, we review the annual fiscal cycle. It's just a reminder that we go over all of these different points every year, and this year we're at the unaudited actuals here in September. Legal requirements, unaudited actual summary, and next steps are what we'll cover this evening. With the unaudited actuals, as shared earlier, it reflects our financial position at the end of last fiscal year, which was June 30th. We ask for your approval, and upon your approval, we share it with the County Office of Education, and then it's verified by our audit. So at this time, I'm going to pass it to Billy to review the highlights of our unaudited actuals report.
Thank you. Good evening. We're going to start with a summary of the unrestricted budget. We're going to compare our estimated actuals, which was in June when we brought the adopted budget. We estimated how we were going to finish the year, and we're going to compare that to how we actually finished our unaudited actuals. So as you know from our conversation a couple weeks ago, our revenue is higher than we thought it would be due to an increase in interest that we received on our cash in the county treasurer. Our expenses were down over many categories. One of the largest was in the LCAP. Our contribution to our special education programs increased, and the result of those has increased our unrestricted fund balance. Here's a review of the numbers. The first column is the description. Second column is the June estimated actuals. That's where we thought we would end the year when we brought you the adopted budget in June. Our September unaudited actuals, and then the change is the difference between where we thought we'd be and how we actually finished. Revenue is up 3.3 million. Expenses are down almost 8 million, which gives us a change in our surplus of 6.1 million. The contribution to our restricted, that's the increase in our special education costs, that ended up being 577,000. So our September unaudited actuals, our unrestricted budget, the fund balance increased by just over $9 million. This is a summary of our restricted side of our budget. Revenue decreased. We're still working on the final ESSER 3 projects. You know, they're being completed right now in all of our school sites. So the revenue and the expenses were down last year as we're finishing them in this fiscal year. Contribution to special education, and the three of those resulted in a decrease in our restricted fund balance. The numbers for that: revenue down $7.5 million, expenses down 3.3 million, or down 3.3 million from where we thought we'd be, which gives us a change in our deficit, or a change in our fund balance by 3.9 million with our September unaudited goals. This slide shows you the combination of our restricted and unrestricted fund balance. So we started the 23-24 school year with $46,794,904 in our general fund. We are ending with our September unaudited actuals at $51,947,520. We have a positive ending fund balance, which is a good indicator of our district health. Planning for the future. So state law caps our reserves at no more than 10% of the ending fund balance. So our assigned and unassigned and commitments have to keep our reserve under 10%. With next year, 24-25 and 25-26, it looks like the cap will not be in effect. But for 23-24, we have to commit some of our ending fund balance to budget stabilization. We're suggesting $16,250,000 keep our reserve percent at 10%. Okay, multi-year projections. This is a requirement by Assembly Bill we use reliable information when we create these, and they're just projected to change the fact. Okay, so 23-24 column, that's the unaudited actuals. You see our ending fund balance percent is at the 9.99, so it's right under the 10% state requirement. In 24-25, we're at a 10.76 ending fund balance percent. Goes up to 15.13 in 25-26. And in 26-27, we're at a 6.43. So in all those years, we're above 6%. State law requires us to have a 3%. Board requires an additional 3%. So we meet that 6% ending fund balance percent in all these years. Under the other financing row in 24-25, you see that jump from the 16 million in 23-24 to 31 million. That line represents our contribution to special education. The 31 million also includes the 16,250,000 that we will move to Fund 17, our budget stabilization fund. And then in 25-26, it's 3 million in negative. We're still contributing to special education, but we're bringing that 16 million back into the unrestricted side of the. So it keeps our ending fund balance where it needs to be, and it allows us to cover our costs. Next slide, please. The reserve for economic uncertainty, like I just said, 3% is the state law for a school of our, or district of our size. Board policy is an additional 3%. For 23-24, the 6% reserve is 7,864,747, which is just below the cost of 1 month of person. Next steps, we're requesting the approval tonight of our unaudited actuals financial report. Our auditors will be here towards the end of October to review financials. We're going to continue to work on and refining our current budget, 24-25 budget. And the next time we'll be presenting is the first interim financial report in December. Thank you.
All right, are there any comments from the public?
None received.
Board.
Thank you for your work on this. I know that it's probably a budget year plus 2 conversation, that we're right at that 6%. So that's the 27-28 year that we should be mindful of. That's not on the screen that you showed us last time. So that is, we're dangerously close to not meeting our statutory threshold.
Thank you. Thank you for this. It is such a yo-yo, as is state funding, and then adding in the county pieces and others. So I appreciate it, and I know that we've committed to work on budget stabilization still with the COVID dollar positions and things. So, which I think is important discussion to have. My question is that just because we haven't talked about it in a while, so if you could maybe remind us or talk about where it fits in, that OPEB amount of money that we kind of put aside that I know could be used for emergencies, not that we would, but can you just remind us how that works and what that looks like?
So a few years ago, when I first came to the district, you all made the great decision of identifying a certain portion of our ending fund balance to other post-employment benefits, OPEB. The way that it works is throughout the year, we are contributing to our retirees' health plans. And at the end of the year, we take a small transfer out of that fund to be able to cover those costs so it doesn't impact the general fund. And so that's how that OPEB commitment works. This year, because of our financial situation, we did not identify a contribution to OPEB. You all could absolutely make that decision after we really look at our finances and see where we are before is what
I'm okay not contributing, to that with your recommendation, but really just in terms of what that looks like in terms of that funding sitting, how does that help us or how do we look at that when we think about the out years and possibly negative pieces? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that's also a type of emergency piece.
So the reason why we recommended putting the money in our OPEB fund was for situations like this. We can easily pull it out. And so if we do get into a really tough financial time, which we're foreseeing right now in the future, we can use that to be able to support the general fund, recognizing that that's one. Oh, thank you. Welcome.
On that note,
Yes.
do we have an idea of what in that OPEB fund? It's basically a savings account, right? Like it's a set aside.
We don't have the exact amount. We can get that for you.
Excuse me. To what Trustee Wong was saying, it's 27, 28 that we're concerned about. Do we have any projections on, I guess, from the school, what's it called? School services as.
I don't like to call it an unfunded liability. We call it our obligation to our employees.
That's right.
That we don't have control over health costs of those who retire, who spent service here, but health costs keep going up. And our budgets, our revenues do not keep pace with the increased health costs of our retirees, which they have earned that. So I think that when we say these things, it's probably important for those who may be joining us or listening, like what that OPEB is. Because we just don't, I mean, we're working out ways to kind of figure out the health costs for writ large, but I think it's important to understand what that pot is and why we did it. Because yeah. Am I correct? I'm sorry. I'm like, you're nodding your head. I'm like, I should have framed it as a question, but yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I kind of got a little confused, and I would love for you to help me on page 15 of your slide. Because I was following, and then all of a sudden I got here and you know Virginia with her numbers, she was like, okay, what's really happening here? So that was last year. So we're pretty much, what we're doing is we're saying that we're above 9.99% closing out book, right? This is just what we see to come, right? The rest of 24, 25, 26.
Yeah.
This other finance, you said it increased because of the contributions for SPED education. And then you said something right after that. You said, and that's why we put it, and I don't know what you did. So how did you Houdini it?
Okay, so the other financing line is our contribution to special education. Last year was $16,264,188. In 24-25, 25-26, it's going to be 16 plus million for special education. But we're also transferring out money to another fund for budget stabilization.
That's the restricted.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
That's where it
it's
went.
another fund. It's not,
Okay.
not Fund 1. So it's keep our ending fund balance under the legal requirement.
Okay.
And then we're going to bring it back the following year to help with our commitment.
Okay.
But it's
Kinda skewed.
16, 31, 30. It's
All right, because I was trying to figure it out on here, but it said all unrestricted. So when you were talking about it in another one, I visually couldn't see the other one because I was focused here. So I thank you for that, for the clarification. That was really my only question that I had.
On
Yes.
that. So thank you, Billy, and thank you for the question. And so when we say unrestricted here, restricted, unrestricted, what's different about when Billy said the Fund 17, remember how we just talked about our OPEB fund? So we have our general fund, I'm going to get budget speak, Fund 01. And then we have our OPEB, Fund 21,
Okay.
20, thank you. And then we have this other fund where we're able to place the money into Fund 17. And that's where we put it, but then we take it right back out to put back into our general fund to help us with stabilizing. So it's still restricted, but it's a different bucket.
Thank you. That was all I had. And that's the magic was behind the curtain. All right. And kind of blank.
So now we
yeah.
ask for your approval of
Yes.
the budget.
I move.
All right, moved by Vice President Pizzotti,
I'll second.
second by Clerk Kirby Gonzalez. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. Thank you. Moving on to next one. Approval, yeah, I was gonna say approval of Swinnerton's Builders change order number 1 for the ESSER 3 project. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Back in June, you all approved a contract with Swinnerton to be able to complete our ESSER 3 projects. As you all know, we are moving forward on those projects, but what we ask is for an extension to their agreement. It was set to end, I think, in August, and we're asking it to extend until March. We will still get all of our projects done, but what we're encountering is a delay in lead time for some of our shade structures. They're not coming in until, I think, December, and we'll need to have that time to make sure that we're implementing. I think this, forgive me, I think we do have an error in our rationale. It says August. I believe that's supposed to be December. And so at this time, we ask for an extension just for time, not for money, for this contract. And it does not affect our ability to expend our ESSER 3 funding as required to end.
Okay. Any public comment?
None received.
Okay. Or any comments from the board?
I'll move when ready.
I just want to make sure, for the record, we have a lot of people who are going to ask us about this one.
Yeah.
That you're saying that this will be completed. Can you give us a time again? A timeline this would be completed, you said December?
No, March.
No.
Oh, sorry.
No. We had hoped
I'm
to be
reading
able
these
to
numbers, got all mixed up.
complete in December. We're still pushing for that and be able to install the shade structures over winter break.
Uh-huh.
But in case we can't, we're asking for that extension of the agreement to ensure that we're able to have that agreement in place so that we can finish those shade structures.
Okay.
We're moving as quickly as, but we are having a problem with lead time with specific.
So my ask would be, is that we just communicate that out to all of our staff. I know they're working with, it's hard to teach. There's a lot going on in construction-wise, and be on a playground and be everywhere. So that we communicate that with our staff and then also with our families so that they're aware too of both of those things.
Absolutely. Our facilities team, they've been giving weekly updates to the school. And so we'll make sure that we ask them to share that with us as well.
You have a question? I know I do.
Yeah. What? Okay, I've got two. What do you mean by lead time? For one, so go ahead and answer that one.
Lead time is you purchase something and it just takes a long time for it to get in, or
Okay.
you order something.
When did we expect it to be in?
I don't have that answer for you. I can get it.
Because I feel like that's been something that we've been waiting for a while. Like, been waiting for things for quite a while to get in, especially when we purchase them. Time is money at this point, and even though it says no cost to the district, there's cost to our kids, and there's cost to our staff, and there's, if it can't be done during the Christmas break, then or winter break, then there's cost to disruption. So there's a cost for sure. It's just, what is that? And I'm just kind of curious as to what is, whoever it is that we're ordering this from, what's their rationale to us as to why they're delayed, and how can we maybe mitigate?
We'll get back to you.
Okay.
My question was going to be, because I'm curious, so I'm thinking of this as an Amazon order, and we pretty much get this email that says it's been delayed, right? If I don't accept this, like if I don't approve this extension, what exactly is going to happen? I'm still going to get my order, right? It's just not going to be, I'm just saying it's unacceptable, right? And then I give them a 1 star on their delivery. I'm just like, I'm trying to put it into like layman term context. Like, I need to know what exactly, if me approving this or not approving this, is this, if I don't approve it, do I still get my shade structure? Do I, like, I want to know.
Yes, we'll still get, we place the order for the shade structure, and we will receive it. Okay. Part of extending this agreement and giving it more time is so that when we receive it, we're not asking people to work overtime or weekends and things like that, which would increase the cost.
Okay.
And so, you know, should this not be approved, then we'll engage with Swinnerton to say, okay, when they do come in, we need you, which is not practical for our schools, in essence, to work 24/7 to be able to install what we need installed. I will find out, you know, exactly when we ordered. In the industry, construction items are just taking longer. It's gotten much better since COVID, but it still takes a while.
Yeah, quickly. Do we have an idea on what the average lead time is? Like, what is that lead time?
I can get that for you.
I was going to say, I see Daniel shaking his head. He seems to be the man with all the answers on that. I'm just curious because it seems like we've had a couple of these things, like, you know, different structures go up, and we've had lots of issues with, you know, not getting them done and sending the wrong parts or sending, you know, like all these things that are kind of popping up. I'm just hoping that, you know, it doesn't provide too much of issue to our kids and, you know, their ability to learn, because it does impact, as we heard the comment, you know, about having no space and no area for the kids to play at one school, and you know, especially with all the equipment and the machinery and all that in the one playground area, you know, and so the quicker we can get things, that's the moral of the story. No, it's out of your, I totally not. Just I'm trying to find information. If we can find that information, can we, you know, distribute it to the board so we can at least let others in the school community know?
I have one more ask. We're just waiting for shade structure, the shade structure, right?
I know the shade structure. I would need to connect with our facilities team to see if there's anything else, and we.
Because what I'm thinking is, if it's just the shade structure, most of these playgrounds have had no shade. They're used to it. Is there a way to, if there's a hole or something, to like temporarily cover it to allow our students the ability to use, make it safe to where they can use the playground until the shade structure is, you know, delivered? Because I think if that's really the only thing that's prohibiting them from being able to use the equipment, then perhaps there's a workaround. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen all of the sites. I don't know if there's a hole. If there's a huge hole, then I get it. But if there isn't anything that's truly prohibiting our children from utilizing the play structures, then can we find some type of like workaround to allow them to use that play area? And I think it will help our teachers.
We can absolutely do that, and I'll give you a little update on how we're going about installing the play structures, and that's one of our part of our projects right now. Is our contractor Swinnerton is going site by site. So this site, great, we were able to get the drilling done or something like that, and then they moved the crew to the next site while another contractor or subcontractor is installing this. So we're almost working in tandem, so we're able to move as quickly as possible to be able to get to each school, being as mindful as possible that it does absolutely impact our student, our staff, our community. And I know that Dan Banowitz, our facilities director and Daniel back here are doing everything they can to work with the contractor so they don't interfere with schools. You know, we've had concerns about them drilling during the school day, and Dan went straight out there and said, we cannot do this. This impacts our students. And so he's working very closely with our contractors to make sure that the construction that's occurring, which is not ideal, during the school year is having as little impact as possible, recognizing it's absolutely going to. So we're moving as quickly and safely as we can with the limitations.
Well, thank you for entertaining my questions. I know it had absolutely nothing to do with Swinnerton and your request for this approval, so I just wanted to get it out there. But Trustee Wong went ahead and motioned. Are there any other questions?
I think there was a comment.
Oh, but it was a public comment.
I moved though.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for the second.
All right, so Trustee Wong second, Vice President Pizzotti, I'm sorry, Trustee Wong moved, wait, you know what I mean. Trustee Wong motioned, you second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, next, moving on, approval of the out-of-state conference attendance, La Concecha, from November 13th, 2024 through November 16th, 2024 in Santa Fe, New Mexico for Elkhorn staff.
Good evening again. As you mentioned, this is a request for 6 Elkhorn staff members, 4 teachers and 2 admin to attend a national conference specifically designed for educators who teach in dual immersion, dual language settings. The fiscal impact is $2,300 per attendee for a total of $18,400. Half would be paid from site funds and the other half would be paid from LCAP funds, professional learning LCAP fund.
All right, are there any public comments?
None received.
Okay, are there any from the board? Nope.
No, I think professional development's good. New Mexico has an excellent program in dual immersion. Glad they're able to experience.
And the conference actually includes school visits.
Yep.
And La cosecha actually means the harvest in Spanish, which is appropriate because it's an opportunity to share ideas and gather ideas from educators all over the country. And so this is a key component of planning as we transition Elkhorn to a full dual immersion program.
All right. And as mentioned before, we will make sure that all of that content that they absorb and bring, and they will come back with more for this for the rest of their teams.
Yes, we'll be happy to include this one in our end of semester update to the board.
Yay, thank you. All right, I heard a
Now move. I'll second.
moved by Trustee Wong, second by Clerk Kirby Gonzalez. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, stay there. Approval of the lift enrichment for the expanded learning programs.
Yes, the next few items are items that provide our students who participate in our expanded learning programs, after-school programs. It gives them access to a wide variety of enrichment opportunities. And for item P6, we are asking you to approve a contract between WUSD and Lift Enrichment. They will provide our students with culinary lessons. Kids will learn cutting, the science of cooking, measuring, nutrition, and this will happen across all of our after-school sites. And the fiscal impact is $199,665.
All right, are there any public comments?
None received.
I have one comment, but I'll wait for the rest. Board members, do they have any?
Go ahead.
I am really excited. So when I saw the science of cooking, I actually took a science of cooking in college. And the reason I say this is because you could take one literally one vegetable, and let's just call it, or fruit, because it's a tomato. And you put it on the comal, cast iron skillet? Okay. You put it on the comal and you roast it. That does something completely different than if you were to boil it, which would do something different than if you would steam it. And all of those make totally different textures for a salsa. Just saying, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there. So I'm looking forward to having all of our youth who do attend this have this ability, because it's gonna be definitely enriching. So thank you so very much. And on that, I will go ahead and move.
I'll second.
All right, moved by me, second by trustee Wong, and all those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye.
Thank
All right.
you. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and now you stay still. Approval of flawless boxing and fitness for the expanded learning program.
Yes, and on this item, I would like to emphasize that kids, in addition to learning boxing skills, they also learn lessons in discipline, self-confidence, nutrition education. And again, this is a program that would be available to all of our students who, across the district, who participate in our after-school programs. And the fiscal impact is $135,515 paid for from our ELOP grant.
All right, do we have any public comments?
None received.
Any from our board? Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I always love all of the work that you do, and I so appreciate it. So I have one question, though, for Coordinator Carroll, specifically as we look at these. I'm supportive of this. I see that with the programs you bring, the self-confidence you talked about, all of those pieces are so important for our kids. And my ask is that in the future as well, when you look at these, if maybe there's a way, because we've been hearing so much about mental health from our kids and the need for more empathy building and social emotional learning, that if there is an additional, maybe this is one avenue where we have a lot of funding, where maybe there's a really good program too that will match even a little bit higher of a need for some of maybe the mental health. So that's just my ask as we approve all of these and continue to think about funding, because sometimes it can be hard to meet that need, or even if there's, like my daughter did grief art therapy. And I know we have a lot of kids in our district, so maybe there's a way to have a smaller contract that works with kids in need after school. So just a thought.
So we actually also partner with Pro Youth, who actually has a contract with the district. So because they have a contract, we actually have just a proposal with them. So they currently are working with our 6th through 8th grade students, because that's the grade level they specifically work with. I am also meeting with our site leaders to implement Sanford Harmony. It is an SEL thing. So we're starting to scratch the surface on it, because I've been a big proponent of social emotional learning over the past 15 years. I worked with Sanford Harmony with my previous organization. And so we're starting with kind of the basics to scratch the superficialness of SEL. So that way, as they build their own capacity and get more relationship building with the students, then we can start diving into those deeper level questions. And also, we have been looking to expand the SEL component for those students that are not in the middle school grades, because right now, Pro Youth, their focus is SEL for middle schools who are transitioning to that high school level. So their program specifically meets the needs of the middle school kids. But we are constantly looking for providers, and specifically are looking for local providers that do the SEL, because as you've seen, all of our proposals have been, I would say, 85-90% local businesses and community members to give back to the communities that that's kind of one focus that we do, is still keeping things local to branch out the services that are currently within the city and help them bring them into.
Yeah, these are they're incredible. So thank you. This is such a gift for all of our kids. So and thank you for that follow-up.
And some of them have an integrated, right? Greenlight Go actually has clinicians and interns. So that's ELOP dollars, but they also bring in additional mental health consultants. But we could do more of that. That was what I'm hearing.
Vice President Pizzotti.
Yeah. Also, along the lines of boxing, I don't know if we have a martial arts program like a Taekwondo or something along those lines with our ELOP?
We had one in the past. We've had a hard time. We've reached out, and it's just, I think with their schedules, they haven't had a time to reach back to us. So we did work with a Taekwondo program last summer, and then we've been reaching out every year to have them come back, but it's just the communication hasn't happened, and we've been emailing, phone calls, and so we're still trying to keep them in, because I know that was a big hit with the students in the summer program, and I know Taekwondo came in a few years before I got here as well, and so we still reach out to all those other community members, and we've actually had families do the same to reach out to us, and they've even given the numbers to them to reach out to us as well. So we're definitely doing the outreach to multiple providers, specifically Taekwondo, because again, we did have that last summer.
To be transparent, I think that we could be better in our business practices, because I think it's a two-way street. It's not just, it's just, I'll just be direct, like the organization was a little bit challenging to have our longtime community member, business owner, who was working with us for ELOP for a long time, that there were just some business practices on our end that makes it challenging to work. Before you came,
Right.
before you came. But yeah,
Third year.
just no. I mean, yeah. Just, again, I think it's overall just a consideration on the business practice side. That great, we're bringing in more programs, but there's just some things we can always improve upon.
And then the other point is, so this is 32 weeks. This is covering 32 weeks. Is that what you're saying? I guess my question is, in terms of this, do we have a facility or several facilities where this is set up, or is it just more of practicing on a bag or on like a mannequin or thing like that nature, where we have to have gloves and things like that, or is it actually getting in a ring? Is that type of thing? I'm just curious of what this looks like, because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so so I know the name is something a little bit similar, but they do focus more on the fitness, so it's a lot more of the physical fitness aspect. So when I've gone to observe it, they have similar to like the ladder, so it's kind of like the feet work, so do a lot of more physical fitness. So the fitness portion of it can be done on a blacktop when the weather is nice, and when there's inclement weather, a lot of times they move into the NPRs or fitness rooms. They do bring the gloves and sparring equipment, so they will be sparring with the instructors to do the sparring with them. But for the most part, it is kind of that fitness portion of it, to more like, again, that discipline, self-confidence level. So it's not so much getting into a ring to do actual boxing. Flawless Boxing Fitness is the name of their overall program, organization, where they do the boxing at their home-based organization, which is located off of Broadway in downtown Sacramento. But here it's
so it's not an actual sparring.
It's more focused on the fitness portion of it. They do have the equipment to do the sparring, but that will be done with with instructor. So students won't be sparring with each.
That's good to know. It helps our parents, like, excuse me, I don't need my child hitting out, approved hitting at school. So yeah, no, I get it. Anything else?
Or governance teamwork. Motion to approve.
I second.
All right, motion by Clerk Kirby Gonzalez, second by Trustee Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. We will not be bringing gloves.
We're about to bring fencing. But we're about to bring fencing. We're about to be poking people.
Approval of Davis Fencing Academy for expanded learning programs. Welcome back.
Yes, so item P8 is asking for approval of contract in our district and the Davis Fencing Academy to provide instruction in the art and sport of fencing for our students who participate in our after-school programs. I believe grades 3 and above. And the financial impact is $128,000 full year.
All right, are there any public comments? Are there any comments from the board?
Is this okay about that they poke each other?
No, no, but I'm just saying, so I had some comments. With these after school, are they gonna be after school programs? And they are open to any school site? Same question, are they gonna be housed at one site, or is it just at certain ones that have the capacity? or certain days of the week?
So we have worked, I have Tetris, basically an enrichment schedule. So as you know, we've brought
It's okay, we're not
15,
English
16 enrichment
correcting.
providers throughout for the year. And so I have put together a spreadsheet with the scheduling. So they will be at every school site. So they are going to be at the 7 school sites in the fall.
Okay.
And part of their contract is they are looking to do a youth fencing league. So we've actually also reserved Clarendon campus in the first 3 weekends of November so they can host a mini tournament. So with the students who are participating in the fencing academy and the after school program will have an opportunity to actually compete against others, like, Westmore students can compete against the Westfield, Bridgeway, Riverbank students. So any student, and again, this will be like a voluntary basis, not going to be, they have to do it. So if they are participating, they have the opportunity to participate in a tournament, actual points based kind of thing, be crowned, champions. And then also in the fall, it aligns with Davis Fence Academy's 25th anniversary. So on one of the days, they'll also be able to observe college athletes, professional fencers, to kind of see where fencing can take them. And then we're also going to try and when they come back in the spring, they'll do the same 7 schools and potentially have another tournament that would happen in the springtime as well. So they are doing more of a culminating event with the fencing. And again, this is usually housed indoors, so either the NPRs, fitness rooms, anywhere that allows the fencing to take place. And to address the question, I have witnessed this. They do wear all the protective clothing, the full
No one's
body.
poking anybody's eye, Jackie.
They had the full mask. I think on our Expanded Learning website, we had the pictures of some of the fencing lessons. So there was an action shot of a student who was actually going towards, so you can actually see the effort. And so they're being taught also the safety of how to handle the EPIs appropriately and not do anything.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm excited. I've seen it on the Olympics, and I was like, oh my gosh, and they were like, I am Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
And as a side note, our instructor, Simon Pitfield, actually has coached a few Olympians, and he's actually hoping to have one of the Olympians come to one of these weekend events. So he does have the experience, and he does also teach the fencing for the UC Davis.
Awesome. Okay. So do I have any motions or any more comments?
No move.
All right, we moved by Clerk Kirby Gonzalez, second by Trustee Wong. All in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye. And don't go nowhere. Adoption of resolution number 2425-32, sufficiency of instructional materials, the Williams Act.
Back, yes. So our school site visitations are an annual requirement to ensure standards-aligned instructional materials are accessible to all of our students. This year, we had 5 schools who participated in our Williams audits: Elkhorn, Riverbank, Stonegate, Westfield, and Westmore, adhering to the California Ed Code pursuant to the Williams settlement. WUSD is required to hold a public hearing by the 8th week of the school year to make a determination through a resolution that every pupil has sufficient textbooks and instructional materials in the 4 core areas: reading, mathematics, science, and history. Principals of these sites provided written verification assuring that all students have equitable access to instructional materials. UCP, or Uniform Complaint Procedures, notices have been posted on our website and in each classroom. The public hearing was conducted as required, and we are asking the board to adopt resolution number 2425-32, stating that we are compliant.
All right, are there any public comments? Are there any public or comments from the board?
Having worked at the impact litigation firm that actually had the Williams settlement, thank you for doing this and thank you for being in compliance. And I move.
All right.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Wong, second by Vice President Pizzotti. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too say aye.
Thank you.
All right. Approval of New Art Education, Inc., DBA, NorCal Schools of the Arts. Welcome back.
Yes. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I think it was the last board meeting we heard from a NorCal representative, and we had students who don't participate in ELOP also receive instruction from, they participated in a conflict resolution program last year provided through Theater Arts by way of NorCal School of Arts. So tonight we're asking to, for the board to approve a contract or agreement between New Art Education, also known as NorCal School of the Arts, to provide their services to our TK through 8 students who participate in our expanded learning programs during the school year. The fiscal impact is $101,816, funded by our ELOP grant.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments? Comments from the board?
Just love NorCal, so I move when ready.
All right, we have moved by trustee Wong.
I'll second.
It was a tie.
Oh,
I was
you
like,
can take it if you want.
and then so move a second by Vice President Pizzotti. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too say aye. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
And now we are on to board governance. Board trustee participation and policy development workshop, PDW. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you, President Coffey. Back in March of 2024, the board approved a contract for a policy development workshop offered by CSBA, and we've been really working to make sure our district's policies manual is accurate, it's comprehensive, and it's compliant with all legal mandates. And so having this workshop will make sure we are addressing key policy issues and maintaining compliance with state and federal requirements. And so we work to coordinate with CSBA to come in and do a workshop with staff and training, which will be scheduled from between October 22nd through the 24th of 2024, so that we can have a updated and legally compliant board policy manual. So CSBA has asked, and CSBA for the public is the California School Boards Association. So CSBA has recommended that a board trustee attend the workshop to provide feedback. And we are requesting that perhaps the policy subcommittee, a member might attend, but we wanted to bring that forward to be part of the process. Trustee will only need to attend one of the 3 days, so not the whole, all 3 days. And once we know who the trustee is, then we will work with CSBA to select the date between the 22nd through 24th of October to align with when the trustee is available.
I'm available if I need to be, or do you?
Oh, I'm good. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
It's okay.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm only
Please
saying
do.
because we're both policy. I'll say only because we're both policy.
Please go ahead. To be transparent, we talked about it at the policy subgroup, and I said that I've been on this policy subgroup since Vice President Presiding created it. Very familiar with this man. Happy to get a second set of eyes to look at this manual.
All right.
And understanding it.
All you, girl.
I'm cool. Or both of you, and you're the alternative. The alternate. So I don't.
Thank you so much.
I'll say I don't need to be on it.
Well, you're welcome. I was just I offered. I said I don't mind. I would be available. Just give me a few times to make some adjustments in my work and regular life, and then I will let you know which one of the days within that time frame I will be available.
Great, thank you so much. And Mario will be in contact to confirm the date based on your availability.
Awesome. Thank you. And now moving on to confirmation of board member attendance at the 2024 CSBA Annual Conference in Anaheim, California from December 4th through 7th, 2024. Hildreth.
Yes, so as is in our board governance handbook, we know that the trustees annually attend the California School Boards Association Annual Education Conference. It's the time where school board members actually get professional development, hear best practices that are happening in districts throughout the state. The workshops are usually led by district staff along with school board members. So this is really that opportunity for everyone to be continuous learners. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to confirm which board members will be attending so that we can move forward with making registration confirmation.
And I,
Go ahead.
Got it.
Okay, so that's one not going. Are there any public comments? No public.
I had asked, so we talked about this initially when we were really thinking about our budget and going through and scrubbing, because I thought that it was just an important conversation on principle, to have a conversation thinking about having, we know that we'll have at least 2 new board members coming on. And so initially the rationale was, do we want to, as a board, commit to CSBA, or do we want to use those funds to bring somebody in, or can we do both? And so I think now it looks like we're in a place where we could do both, because I do think that having somebody work with our governing board, like in January early, to go through maybe with what Marie's done with us, maybe Nicole Anderson, we can have a talk about what that looks like. But I think that it's important to do governance work, because having 2 new board members for certain is going to change the dynamics of the board, and we want to make sure that we're and thank you for your time, even though you're not part of this conversation, Vice President Pizzotti.
What?
He's already
He already checked out.
So that's where I was coming from. Can I ask a question on timeline? We know the Golden Bells presented at CSBA.
Yes,
Do you know what day?
And just for transparency, because I'm on the board, it's going to be covered by CSBA. So I'm going to be there regardless of whether or not I am in the seat. I have to go just because it will still be on the board of directors. So, yeah.
How does that work? How long will that?
Through December.
So then my question is, if we know what day the Golden Bell is, I think that's important, because for my work schedule and other days, I'm happy to take personal. I love when my personal time is volunteering in a classroom, but to do that here, but I'd prefer to leave.
Let me look at.
Okay.
I will tell you, I went ahead and I already requested that time off, so I am good and I am available.
All right, if you're all good with it, I'm good too. I'll attend.
But I think.
But I'd like to attend the Thursday, leave Wednesday evening, as has been done in the past. So my question is just when that Golden Bell would be, because that
It's usually the Thursday night, so it's not the first night. So if it's the
then
fourth,
that's fine.
it's the Thursday night.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Spoiler alert, you passed your validation. So, yeah, have you officially gotten the notice?
We have not officially
Or
gotten
maybe I
the
wasn't supposed to
notice.
say that.
So
Ignore everything I
have
just
not
said.
moved forward in any discussion because there has been no official notification.
Okay, I apologize. I guess I
so-
did that too quickly, but I was thinking that it might, okay.
Yes, sorry, yes. Spoiler, we're
And then
not sure.
we have connected with all candidates who are running as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then count me in for Thursday and Friday.
And we will have a governance in early January for the new board, because even with one new candidate, it changes the dynamics of the board. I was that one.
Yes, so I'm currently researching, so if you have recommendations of facilitators, please let me know. Well, I can add that to the list.
That for sure.
Okay, we can.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And now approval to submit a letter of recommendation for the appointment of Mr. Chris Hanks to the California Arts Commission. Dr. Hildreth.
So we recognize that it's always been important in the district, the importance of the arts and enriching the lives of our students and the broader community. That's been clear. And we know that the California Arts Commission plays a vital role in advancing arts and cultural programs throughout the state. And so the board is recommending our own Mr. Chris Hanks for appointment to the California Arts Commission, which is a respected advocate for education, Mr. Hanks' dedication to promoting and integrating the arts within public education aligns with the district's commitment to supporting the arts as a key component of student development and well-being. So the approval of this letter of support will highlight Washington Unified's endorsement of Mr. Hanks and encourage his leadership. So by submitting this letter, we're able to demonstrate the continued commitment in supporting the art and aligning with the importance of the arts at the state level as well, and advocating for policies that benefit our students and family and arts in the California community.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? All right, some comments from the board.
No, just thank you for being patient with the draft and bringing this forward at my request, just because he's awesome. And I forgot to tell him it was on the agenda. So.
That's okay.
Well, I'm glad he didn't give up his entire evening.
Right. But I think it'll be a nice surprise for him.
Yeah, he's a huge, we're just so grateful to have him. And I drove, as I've said before, carpool with his whole fan club in the car, after Camp Yampa, because the work that he does with our kids is just really lucky to have.
We are. All right.
So does this require a motion? I'll move.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're going to sign it. Yeah, might as well. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we will have a move by Vice President Pizzotti.
I'll second.
Second by Trustee Wong. And all those in favor?
Aye.
I too say aye. All right. And now on to the first read of revisions to Board Policy Number 5131.8, Mobile Communication Devices.
Thank you for having me back up here. I'm not asking for any fencing or boxing or anything, but that sounded
Don't worry, Dave, this is still good stuff.
More exciting.
This is still good. This is still good. So at this point, the board policy number 5131.8, mobile communication devices, aims to balance the benefits and potential disruptions caused by the use of mobile communication devices on campus. Its goal is to balance the benefits of mobile communication devices with the potential disruptions they may cause on campus. As you know, this is in the news everywhere, right? The policy permits students to use cell phones, smartwatches, pagers, and other mobile devices during non-instructional time, ensuring that their use aligns with educational and safety regulations during instructional time. These devices must be turned off to minimize disruptions to the learning environment. However, exceptions are allowed under specific circumstances, such as emergencies, health needs determined by a physician, or requirements outlined in a student's individualized education program. The policy also addresses privacy concerns and establishes guidelines for confiscation and disciplinary actions related to unauthorized use of mobile devices. Importantly, it clarifies that the school district is not responsible for any loss, theft, or damage to these devices on campus. The policy aims to create a safe and focused educational environment while recognizing the role of mobile devices in modern student life. By adopting this policy, the district will provide clear guidelines for students, parents, and staff, ensuring a balanced approach to the use of mobile communication devices in our schools. Board Policy Number 5131.8 presented to the Policy Subcommittee on July 30th and on September 17th, 2024, which provided feedback on the recommendation changes from the district and site staff, as well as input from the California Department of Education. Administration requests the board to conduct a first reading of the policy and approve it for formal adoption, or indicate if a second reading is necessary, contingent on the full board review and feedback. Attached, you will see the original board policy from 2019, reviewed on 10/1/2019, and then we have the updated one here with the red in here. Do you want me to read the red, or are you good with changes that are?
I can't.
Oh.
There's a typo on.
Are you reading the red?
Yeah. No, it was right here. Right here. It says students 6 through 8 may mobile.
Oh, yeah, we forgot to correct.
Thank you.
That was noted on the 17th.
It was.
May we mobile?
Want them to be mobile.
We may mobile?
Can we pull it up on
the screen?
On the screen?
Yeah.
That would-
While we do that,
Mhm.
can I don't know if there's public comment first. I told the students at the Youth Empowerment Summit that I would say all the things that they told me to say. So specifically, first from the Washington Middle College High School. They wanted me to be clear that the first set of comments was from Washington Middle College High School. They wanted to make sure that they were trustworthy, right? That adults should actually listen to them. And they did raise the issue, and it's been mentioned tonight, is like they're concerned about cyberbullying and people actually taking non-consensual pictures and spreading around and bullying people online. So they understood the necessity of this policy. And they also requested that the adults explain why this policy needed to exist, right? And that there was consistent implementation across the board in classrooms, right? So again, to trust them, to talk to them, because what they don't want is an authoritarian kind of voice to come in and just take a phone and not explain why it's important to them. And specifically, it's important to learn, et cetera, et cetera. So that just consistency across the board. They also were, they said very clearly, one table, no pouches. They were no pouches. And again, it goes back to trust student voice. And if they are using things improperly, like if they are using things to cyberbully, take them through the discipline process. Suspend, like go through that progressive discipline process that's been outlined. And every adult, I'm sorry, there's a lot of detail that they wanted me to explain to them. Explain to them the importance of that. Primarily because this policy is important to them, because they think there's a rise, they believe and they're experiencing a rise in mental health issues because of an increase in the keyboard warriors and the mental health issues, and that they want us to actually, it's not part of this policy, but it really is contributing to their well-being. So really just consistent policy as to why this is important. And I think that's it on this policy alone. I think that's everything that they wanted me to say.
Only school?
Oh, no, but I also talked to River City as well as YOLO. Yeah, it is, but they wanted, yes, River City and YOLO too, but yes, YOLO High. So they wanted to make sure that they got the shout out first, because they feel like they don't. They're often
And
forgotten.
that was the common theme for all three of the schools. That what Washington Middle College students expressed was the theme that we heard as we went to each table.
Yes.
I have some if we're ready. Are you ready? Okay.
I have comments too. I thought you said you had.
I do.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. Can I ask when the governing board recognizes because we have Chromebooks for all kids, and we just did our Williams Act, so we know they all have one, access to when would smartphones and mobile devices be beneficial to student learning and well-being, do we believe, as a governing board? It says the governing board recognizes.
I don't think there's any time in which that would be the case.
The very first sentence, can you go up to the very top?
So when teachers decide that they use a Menti or they want to use a mobile device, but to your point, we do have Chromebook. So there's some incidents, even when we talked at the policy, that there are some teachers who do use mobile devices.
I think we could just, for my personal, I don't want to lead with something that I
don't believe in.
Well, I think very much more that it's disruptive, hurting SEL, hurting well-being, creating bullying. I see every single day on a campus the negatives of social media and cell phones. So I don't want to lead with that we think that it's beneficial to well-being. So my thought, because it does say governing board, would be to just say the governing board recognizes smartphones and other mobile communication devices could be disruptive, and just take out that
beneficial
whole piece of the beneficial to student learning and well-being. Because we're creating this policy not because we believe that they're helping their well-being, but because we know that they can be disruptive.
So at times there's now apps on social emotional.
There are sure, and I have like a Calm app and stuff, but I think if this is the reason we're putting this here isn't that they're using those in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a
I don't know how others feel.
Yeah.
So that we're clear.
And I don't know if my colleagues agree, but I'll say. The governing board recognizes the use of smartphones and other mobile devices could be disruptive, and just take out that piece
So
about.
on campus. On campus may be beneficial to
Yeah.
students.
And if it
There
says,
is no
maybe it says
benefit,
on
yeah.
campus, and then just take out the may be beneficial to students. I don't know if you all
I'm
wanna
not
talk about
saying I
that.
disagree. I understand the point of this particular piece is to point out where the disruption can be. So this is not here, there's not a sandwich here. We're not trying to sandwich it. We're trying to pretty much call it out. So I agree that we should have on campus could be disruptive, because the word could doesn't necessarily mean it is always. It's not a for sure, but it does say that that there is a possibility. And for that reason, this is what we're doing.
Part that
Yeah, but may be beneficial to student learning and well-being. But, but.
Okay. And then my next one would be the question on students TK5 may not use mobile devices while on campus. And I'm wondering why the determination of while on campus versus from first bell to last bell, as is in 6-8.
You had an explanation.
So we
And the students were okay with that. They wanted every grade level to have a different, because of the age, that they themselves were
when we
understood the gradient.
We talked to several, right, from each campus. We talked to different students on every campus. And one of the things that when we started surveying them or getting feedback, because we didn't do a survey, but we did feedback, was that they saw the importance of the differentiation between K through 5, 6 through 8, and then at the high school level. But the big question is why, when we started looking with administrators and everybody else, and including, people started liking the breakdown that PK through 5. And the interesting thing was they were already doing this. When we started surveying the principals, they're like, this looks the most like what we already have in place on our campus. I think that was the key. They're like, we're already doing this. Let's not change it.
So I guess my then comment would be, is the bike rack not on campus? Bike rack would be on campus, correct? The bike.
Yes.
So for example, my very much rule follower, 5th grader is text me in the bike rack, I'm on my way home before leaving campus. And that's just our rule and our policy. And so in our home. And so I think that there's probably families like mine, they're not in the campus, they've left, but I think a lot of our families are like mine who would alert their child like, okay, I'm walking, they have a little group, they're going in a group together, but I get that note. Or for example, if a teacher's running an after school club, then it's off, it's okay, I'm leaving now. And we have a system, we drive, we follow, we have a whole thing. And I think a lot of our kids are like that. So I don't know what you all think, but in terms of that technically is on campus. If they're waiting in front of the school office for their family, that's in front of school. So that's what my worry about. I don't necessarily agree with that language because of that situation.
Maybe PK5 should be the exact same as 6-8.
Campus before the first bell and after the last.
The only
But
issue
they
with
don't
that,
have
which
bells.
probably your staff feels, is that if they're all on the playground playing, we don't want them all having phones out, which I would think, which
But
I can
that's still
understand.
first and last
So
bell,
maybe
isn't it?
it's, outside of the school gate. I don't know what it might be, but I just would like to, maybe we could get some more feedback on that, or.
Oh,
So here's before and after school. Well,
So before the first bell and after the last bell, are those okay, because this is me not sure, and I want to, is it the first bell of the class and the last bell of that first
So you
period?
get a warning bell, right?
First period, second period bells? Or is that first
means-
period
it means
of when school
before.
starts and when school ends?
So in this case, the first bell indicates that the instructional day has began, and the last bell indicates that the instructional day has ended.
Okay, so I totally interpret that as in during passing period, you can use your phone.
no.
Passing period is considered instructional time.
Well, to
So
me,
they
I would
would
have been
not
like, I'm
be-
not learning during passing period and I'm on, nutrition break. So I would have read that way.
For our 9th through 12th graders, they would be able, the way it's written, they would
Yeah.
be able to use their cell phones before the first bell, after the last bell, and during non-instructional time, such as their lunch period or nutrition period.
That part makes sense. I can see why you don't want phones if they're all on the playground before the bell rings. So I understand that reasoning. I just think that if by saying on campus, then that hinders them if they're in the front office. Technically, they would be breaking this. Even I don't know that we would have staff enforcing that, but I wouldn't.
The older the kids just wanted the kids to learn how to play and get off their devices.
So maybe that we can think about that if it comes back. And then my other piece would be, is there a reason why our staff didn't agree with maybe mobile devices shall be turned off during instructional time and out of sight, or something about that it would
That's
be
where I was going to go.
away versus I know from, again, work at a place where we were able to really, there are no more cell phones out. You will not see them, but that was not the case last year. But we,
Remove.
like in the pockets sticking out isn't okay anymore. It's in a backpack. So it helps with the temptation. So I just wonder if we could have out of sight or in a backpack.
We can definitely add the out of sight piece. When we brought it to the subcommittee the first time, there was some concern that if we asked kids to power it off completely, parents could no longer use or access the tracking aspect of kids having a mobile device.
But if it's,
But it could be silenced.
just silent and out of sight.
Can I add just the student voice on this? Because it was an interesting concept to me, is that some of them were explaining that they had to earn their phone and they're not going to use it, but sometimes it's a anxiety thing where they just, there's a mental connection because that's just how they're digital natives. And they're okay with so they get anxious if they can't see it, but if they're not using it, but it's on their desk, they won't use it, but it gives them some sort of, I'm just explaining what the students are telling us, that take it as with a grain of salt or whatever, but for whatever reason, it's an anxiety thing, if there's somebody sick or whatever, it's how do you, some of these things are in case of emergency, how do I know if there's an emergency or not? But I'm just, again, I see us shaking. All I'm saying is students want to be heard. They were very, very clear about and it's teacher by teacher too, right? They were saying, it's interesting how some teachers actually understand kind of the anxiety and let some kids use it or whatever. Maybe they're on an app, I'm not sure. But again, for them, it's trust them to not use it, but also apply the rule. If they're misappropriately using it, then apply the progressive discipline.
Well, here's the thing. If we trusted them to use it appropriately, we've already been doing that, and this policy wouldn't be coming to us in the first, right? We've had issues with the use of cell phones on campuses, and this is hence the reason why we're having to adjust our policy. So I would say, create a policy that we can implement uniformly, not teacher by teacher has their own version of what this policy means. It has to be the same. I agree with Clerk Kirby Gonzalez in the sense that it should be out of sight. Taking it out of the vision so the teacher has the ability to instruct class without interruption of potentially seeing a student fumbling about on their cell phone or disrupting class through whatever reason. It doesn't matter what that reason is. It's irrelevant because it shouldn't be used in class. And if it is, it should be confiscated and it should be removed. So we've seen all kinds of things like pouches. I don't agree with pouches. I don't think that's the right way. We have the ability to put it into a backpack or even a back pocket. It's out of sight. Whatever it is, it's not visible to anybody else and it can't be used. The minute it comes out, it gets confiscated and you can get it back at the end of the day or at the end of the class, whatever, depending what grade level you're at, right? So, I tend to believe that these are good starts. There's some I believe the TK5 should apply to 6 and 8. I agree with Clerk
put Kirby Gonzalez on that. They may not use it while on campus. There may be a reason for, once you get out of class, the kids immediately text their parents, hey, I'm on my way home. I did that with my kid who was in 5th grade. She had to stay home by herself. I wanted to know when she left campus immediately, and that was before she left. So I think there's an actual reason. As soon as the last bell rings, you're fine to use it. That seems to be reasonable. But I don't see there's any reason for a cell phone to be used during the school hours, unless there's an emergency. Other than that, I can't see that. And there is bullying going on. In fact, my daughter's told me, because I'm not, 6th or 7th or 8th grader, and I don't see it, but she has to put her hand up in front of kids taking her picture when she doesn't want her picture taken, because they use that to bully. And so I think it's a valid reason to say, look, this is a problem, and we can address that by saying, hey, no mobile communication devices, during the bells.
And based off of what you said from what the students are saying, out of sight, and they have that anxiety, I think if it's in their back pocket or in a pocket, on their person somewhere, they can still kind of feel that it's there. It will give them that sense of reassurance.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
yeah.
versus some, this right here, it could become a distraction of like, well, why does that person get to, unless it's a part of their IEP and whatnot. I think that would help. I was one of those that brought up the devices shall be turned off during instructional time. I have my children on Life 360. I know where they're walking, where on campus, and there's a reason for that, and I don't need to say why in this platform, but I have the need to know of like, where are they, because I need to make sure that they're safe. And so if it's off, I can't tell where they're at. So for me, it's a sense of safety without having that instant like notification from the school. I don't need to be notified from the school. I can tell where my kids are. I know that they're on campus. If I see, he starts taking off and he went on this high speed chase, I can tell and I'll know where they're at. Like I can see that real time. So for me, I prefer mobile communication devices shall be silenced during instructional time and preferably out of sight. Whether that's in a backpack, back pocket, wherever that is, just somewhere where it's not a distraction to the student as well as any other student in the classroom. That's me.
And if it comes out, then that's when it needs to be conversation.
All I'm saying, I don't disagree. I'm just, my commitment was just to the students to say like that. I just want to be super clear that like that was my commitment to the students today.
No, and I thank you for that, because it's really important that we hear student voice, and when we have that dialogue, I mean, I know they're not here, but they'll be watching. We hear you and we understand your reasoning. At the same time, we also have obligations to ensure that we are being fair across the board. Fair doesn't always is not always equal, and for that reason, we did take him into consideration, and we're not just dismissing it. We're discussing it, and we are coming up with reasonable changes to make sure they know that we did hear them.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And they would appreciate the keep it on, because I'm sure some of that stuff came on too.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to share, because I think that is very real, and there's psychology of it. These are meant to be addicting. They're addicting. And so, I think that it's important to also do what I saw from where it worked on campus is we all knew the first 2 weeks we're going to have a lot of pushback, because this is an addiction and it's going to be very, very hard emotionally. We're going to have kids upset. So it was front loaded for 2 weeks before it even started. And then every staff member was on, every family knew, every day the announcement was made. We're going to put our phones away. They're going to be on silent. They're going to be, and it was like over and over drilled in, because I think that is a really important point, is that there's a very much an emotional toll that we just have to be ready for. And then once you get there, it's heaven. It's lovely. I'll just say when they're away. But
And all they're saying is explain it, like take the 2 weeks, whatever, like explain it, explain it, explain it.
Yeah, the kids and
Like,
families.
and family, yeah, exactly, both. Like, so everybody knows and understands, is on the same page. Because you don't want to just roll it out and just, it's going to be chaos.
Right,
according to them.
And I think the last one, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Was that when it says, if we are saying that the 9-12 students can use mobile devices, I think one area that I think it would be good to call out, even though it might be in accordance with student use, I think there's maybe some things we just should call out, like not in a bathroom or locker room, you know, because that's where it can be a really serious bullying piece. So if you're
So pretty much putting out there, like, student 912, non-instructional time, students' use of technology, example, calling it out, like, not using in.
it can be used, but
In accordance with student use of technology, but I'm saying for them, for the read, do we want to call out those specific ones where they should not be using it in
I
there?
would prefer that we called out the bathroom locker room if we're
Okay.
saying they can have it in places, but there's just, even if, I mean,
There are
there's
federal
more
laws that
to
come
it
up,
to
yeah.
follow technology. But I think that's just important to, it gives staff power too. This is,
So-
the board made this decision.
Adding additional sentence then, not necessarily like a bullet, but an additional sentence.
Maybe, sorry, students in 9-12 may use mobile devices on campus, comma, with the exception of locker room and bathrooms, comma.
Okay, thank you. That's where I was trying to give them
Maybe
direction.
that would
Well, what if they're doing their business?
Huh?
What if they're doing their
No.
business?
All right, so this is the first read. Do you have your instructions? Is there anything additional that we would like to add?
But that's also
or-
a federal offense.
Yes.
Are there consequences?
Then we don't, wasn't hold.
I mean, so what are the consequences
So
in
that-
violation?
That is something that we would have to
take it
work out in our AR for the administrative regulations.
Okay,
We see that as a next step once we have your approval on the policy.
okay.
Do you guys have clear direction on how to bring it back in the amendments?
Yes, we'll bring it back for a second read at the next board.
Awesome.
If we're all similar in like feeling though, like that's a pretty good overall like direction, then maybe could you all get started on the AR? At least be thinking, okay, we're not hanging up.
Awesome. Excellent.
Can you
Nothing?
repeat back to us what you understood to be the amendments? Sorry. There was a lot of talking about different things. So just to make sure
Absolutely.
on process that we are all clear.
So the first thing we heard was to not lead with the statement about there may be benefits to the use of mobile devices, but instead to lead with the intent really is to make sure we're minimizing distractions to learning in the first paragraph. And then in the third paragraph, making sure that what the rules are for 6 through 8 also apply to TK5. And in that language, leaving some room for kids to be able to use it to notify parents of departure of campus, something to that effect, something that kids won't be penalized for using it when they're leaving campus. And then for 9-12, making sure we call out that, yes, they can use it during non-instructional time with the exception of in locker rooms or restrooms. What else?
The non-visible
out of
in
sight
class.
and silence.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an addition.
And also, we got some input or ideas about front-loading, taking 2 weeks to front-load before we actually implement any kinds of consequences that are issued to kids. And to bring it back in 2 weeks for the second read with the possible draft of the AR.
And there was a grammar or something that was.
The word use was omitted in the third paragraph, and
Okay.
we've already added that.
Okay,
back.
just
Yes,
wanted to make
thank
sure. I was
you.
like,
Thank you for the reminder.
all right,
Thank you. Had a lot.
excellent. So that was our first read. We look forward to the second. And now we are on the first read and review of the new Washington Unified School District Board Policy Number 0201, Human Dignity. Shay.
Equity.
Oh, wait.
Equity first.
I totally skipped it. I'm sorry. Sorry, Shay. You're on my turn. Sorry.
Presenting on this.
This one, sorry, first read of the new Washington Unified School District Board Policy Number 415 on equity. I apologize. I skipped the wrong, I went to the wrong one.
So last but not least, for me tonight is a first read of a new WUSD policy, board policy number 0415 on equity. This policy pertains to the district's equity policies, principles, and practices. This policy aims to establish guidance and standards around promoting educational equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging throughout the district in alignment with state and federal guidelines. The board policy, the board policy subcommittee received an update on this policy at the July 30th and September 17th meetings. We are presenting a first read of this policy after meeting with the policy subcommittee and gathering feedback from staff as well as students. This policy aligns with our strategic plan, including our equity principles, which defines our commitment to increase opportunities and outcomes for students from historically underserved and underrepresented populations.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Okay.
There are a couple of things that I don't think were captured when we talked about on the 17th. For example, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander wasn't included because that's a population, an indigenous population that often isn't included.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. And then the desire to spell out mecha
Yes.
was another one. And I loved your explanation of how the students kind of simplified it so that
Yes, there were some items that they felt like we could be a little bit more explicit, and where they felt like some of our acronyms weren't inclusive as they could be. So we added in a couple of additions and words based on our feedback from students. One example of that is, I think you can see it in, let me see, I think it's the second paragraph. It's in the third paragraph. Students who are members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning community. That's all language from our students, making sure we're being as inclusive as possible. Any other questions or comments or recommendations?
I appreciate how you explained that the student, the students wanted to be accessible to them, because what we had was very academic in a way, not in a language that was accessible, so that they could use this as a right. Say, this is our policy. We should be having access to X, Y, Z.
Thank you. Yes, we made sure to making sure that the language and that the policy is accessible to students. They can pick it up and read it and understand exactly what it means to them.
I'm wondering, but I don't know, so you can help me on it, because this just might not be the place for it, it might not work, but, we talk a lot now about student who's, like a neurodivergent learner versus a learning disability. I don't know if there's a way to word that differently, or if it's okay to just call it out that way, but, have a mental, physical, or learning disability. But I wanted to at least bring that up, think about that language versus.
Neurodivergence is different than, it's different than learning disability. It's actually, I think children who are autistic on that spectrum. So I think neurodivergence is a new term that we should add
to that particular bullet.
Yeah, that's good. I think that
who are students who are neurodivergent or have a mental, physical, or learning disability. in the same category.
Yes.
Can I?
Because she made it, we have.
You can come back. You can approve it. So adding neurodivergent and then adding Native Hawaiian as well as spelling out Mecha.
Mecha, yes.
I would.
But did you want to approve it? Did you?
No, I was saying because there's.
Needs to come back.
Yeah, it needs to come back.
Yeah.
come back.
I wasn't sure what.
I think Kirby Gonzalez thought there was only one thing that needed to be changed.
Sorry, I did
and
hear
so-
you. I did listen to what you said. I'm sorry.
I mean, we're adding.
Yeah, it is more to add than
Yeah.
that we should have. I
Yeah.
agree with.
So I have 3 changes. Adding Native Hawaiian, neurodivergent, and spelling out Mecha. Thank you.
Good. Really
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, the first read and review of the new Washington Unified School District Board Policy Number 0201, Human Dignity. Shay Borges, I am so sorry I called you earlier.
It's okay. Keeping me on my toes.
That's right. Yes.
Good evening, trustees. Hildreth, that's still sticking out with us. I am very excited to be here to bring forward to you a new board policy, human dignity. Human resource team. I love this one. I think it's volumes. We find that this new board policy is needed to focus on creating a district where everyone is valued and respected. This policy aims to foster an inclusive and supportive environment for our entire school community, not just in the classroom, but everywhere throughout the campuses, activities. You can see that normally I bring forward board policies under the 4,000s in the personnel. This is actually in the 200s because we want it to be under the philosophies and goals and objectives. That important here. This was brought to 2 different policy subcommittees, July 30th and 17th, and it's being recommended to be formally adopted if second reading is not needed.
I told the students about this. I'm like, did you read our board agenda before you came to Youth Empowerment Summit? Not sure if that was strategy or not. This was very, very important to them because of the things that have been going on our campus. Racist comments, treatment of children of, students of color, LGBTQ and whatnot. And so it's pervasive amongst, and it kind of was a good reminder that our kids are watching us and seeing us, and that we should have this, and that was their request, because they didn't know we had this policy. And I said, did you know, Dr. Hill, come over here, like Dr. Hildreth. And so they were really excited that this was being brought forward for consideration because of everything that's happening and has been heightened by the division post-pandemic, but especially now with, I'll just name elections and what's happening. And that was, some of them were in tears talking about what was happening on our campuses in regard to kind of human dignity, and not just with students, but what they were seeing among adults. So I just wanted to add that voice across the board from our students.
Thank
you. Yeah, it was the perfect, that's why I said the Youth Empowerment Summit. I felt like, did somebody give them our board agenda and like just called me on all the things?
That's good.
Any comments on it? Nope. Nope, none, no public comments either.
I
Well,
think it looks great.
are we all in agreement that it looks good and that we're ready to adopt it?
Yeah.
All right, so do I
I'll
have a
move.
motion by Vice President Pizzotti,
I'll second.
second by Trustee Wong, and all those in favor?
Aye.
And I too say aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, students.
And now on to our board superintendent comments. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you, President Coffey, and it's kind of hard to believe that it's almost October, starting on Tuesday, and so things are really moving quickly in our first semester. So there, just want to highlight a couple of things. We've talked about the Yolo County Youth Empowerment Summit that has been mentioned several times this evening, but there were over 150 high school students throughout Yolo County who attended, and over 30 elected leaders throughout Yolo County gathered at UC Davis. And so just to describe kind of what we've been mentioning, students were in round tables, like groups of 8 by school, and then there was a list of topics that they could choose what they wanted to talk about. So was it social justice? Was it democracy? Was it school and mental health? So it was a really good way of giving them choice and then them choosing what they wanted to focus on. So it's something that I think more of our students could benefit from having the opportunity to talk more in small groups. They gave us a lot of suggestions and recommendations of how they receive information in talking about social media or talking about TikTok. And like, if you can get your message out like quickly, not all, 5 pages that's just not how they receive information. So that was very helpful. They asked, for example, when things are happening on our school campuses, if we could just make sure students are included in the why. So instead of just saying this is what the rule is, okay, we understand the rule, but if they could understand more of the reasoning behind it, it's just will help them understand how decisions are made. Whether they agree with the decision or not, that just is helping them understand that there was actually a thought process that went behind the decisions that are made at schools. So really appreciated Jesse Salinas even bringing that forward for us to have that opportunity. And then on Tuesday, we had the opportunity to gather at Riverbank in highlighting our partnership with the Masons of California and Raising a Reader. And they generously funded bilingual books with Farsi translation for over 150 of our Afghan refugee families. So we know that with approximately 10% of our student population coming from countries outside of the United States, attending schools here in WUSD, we're seeing an increase in our newcomers. And so we're grateful when we have these partners like Raising a Reader or Masons of California to help us help families, because that was really what it's about. It's about literacy. And a lot of times we talk about a homeschool connection, but then we don't really have the resources to support a homeschool connection when it comes to literacy. We have families who come to us with education, lots of education. They just may not have the language of English to support. So if we can provide those resources for families to read and engage with their children when they're young and setting those foundations in the language of the home, that is going to be a benefit to our students, to our parents, increasing our parent engagement, because we're providing them resources, not just saying it would be good if you could read to your child. Well, if all my books are in English and I am not an English reader, or that I'm not fluent, then there's somewhat of a disconnect. So Raising a Reader allows us to do this, and I believe they developed these books in Farsi just for us. So it was a wonderful event. I want to thank Stacy Tran for really coordinating such a wonderful event. And the Masons told me that they do work with a lot of school districts, but they have never been treated as graciously, as respectfully, and really feeling that it was a true partnership, and we valued that. So thank you, Stacy, for the behind the scenes work. We had media, I think ABC 10, Fox 40, KCRA 13. So there, it did get a highlight. So really just really thankful about that. And then as we heard today as we talked about Swinnerton and different budgets, we have a new Bridgeway Island School play structure that's coming. Westmore Oaks, we have grass now on that backfield, so that's coming along. The handball wall at YOLO has been installed. Working on that ribbon cutting. We're working on the high flow water filling stations at Riverbank. Specifically, that's going to bring in 6 new bottle filling stations with filtration system. And it's really part of our ongoing effort to enhance water access and quality in our schools, promoting healthy hydration habits, because you would be surprised how many students do not drink water during the day. And I'm thinking, it's like been 100 degrees for a very long time, but they're just running around and, you know, they're just not thinking about it. So this will be a way to conserve on that the plastic bottles. And, you know, we can encourage more kids to bring water bottles, knowing that you have a place to actually fill that water bottle in a different way. So excited about that. And then lastly, we're wrapping up Attendance Awareness Month. We want to continue to highlight the importance of attendance, and our team is working with our school sites to have a fun district-wide activity on October 2nd, so next week, to encourage students and staff to come dressed as their favorite superhero to celebrate WUSD's first ever Attendance Superhero Day. So allowing time to wear that costume before Halloween.
And you will be what?
And I'm gonna surprise with
She's still thinking about
what
it.
what kind of superhero I might want to come. So looking forward to that next week. So principals are going to be sending out information about that. And that's what I have for today. And I'm going to turn it over to trustees.
Thank you. Trustee Wong.
I'd be remiss to not acknowledge a loss we had in our community with West Sacramento Fire Engineer Tim Hall. I apologize and ask for a moment's silence at the beginning, but I know those who have met him or know him, he meant a lot to this community and a lot of family members. So I'm going to take that moment now. Thank you. Thank you. Here's a reminder of what was good in this community. And that's bringing unity and purpose and not division. You know, he trained a lot of our River City graduates, and to have him be lost so young, I know if it impacts me, and I've only met him a couple of times, it's impacting a lot of our community members and our alumni, and so my heart goes out to the family, who many of us do know. That being said, in the spirit of what he meant, really, really grateful for the Masons who had reached out specifically to me in Raising a Reader. As many of you know, I'm the executive director of First Five California and have invested in Raising a Reader and literacy. I had no idea that they were going to literally translate our book just for us. Because I was floored when I saw it. I was floored that they turned it around so quickly, because they made it a strategic investment. And the story is, and I know this because they shared it with us, you know, when I first met them, is that a lot of them were our vets who served in Afghanistan, and they wanted to give back, and they had heard about us, and they hadn't heard about what we were doing here, and so they reached out, and just grateful that for our staff who really made this a reality for our kids and our families. And of course, there were Spanish translations already and all that, but the idea of literacy is not just about literacy, but it's a welcome bag.
right, to see something in your own language, especially if you all knew how we created the newcomer program during that time of massive exodus. So just really grateful for that partnership and the Masons coming out in full force. They all came out in full force too, by the way. I was like, oh my God, for that. And then to yesterday, man, those our students are. I am hopeful for our future because these students are bright. They are. I've told a lot of people. I feel like they're better than us in so many ways. Right? They're much more empathetic. They understand. They're just much more aware. Even though like we have empathy issues, we know that there's some don't. But those who were there were just. They see something, they want to do something, they were very much taking me to task about, I said all the things already about mental health, cyberbullying, all of that, but they also were talking about their careers. They were talking about the badging with our home run program of like, so Trustee Wong, what are you going to do? Like, what do you think about like badging and my career and teaching? And I was just floored about them wanting to do more CTE. And I think we've talked about this before with the home run of like, how do you actually create micro credentials and credentials that they can get a permit to be like a child care worker, and then the child care worker become a, family home provider who then you can actually just kind of ladder into teaching, because we do have a shortage of teachers. But like the brilliance of these young people who are just seeing their future before us and telling me like, Jackie, like we want to be we are part of this community. And they were so mature and so thoughtful. And that's why tonight I was like, okay, even though I may not agree with what they were saying, I had to represent what they wanted to say. I know tomorrow's the district's first PD. I know that there's a lot going to go on, and we made a large investment, so I'm looking forward to hearing what is going to come out of that. I know teachers are excited and anxious and all of the things, so I know that our partners in the audience will tell us how it's going to go and looking and how, like, what it will look like in the future, because I'm excited that we are getting that and investing in we've been investing in our staff and continue to invest in our staff. And the last thing is it's fall festival season, and, Clerk Kirby Gonzalez and I always tell mom jokes. So I don't know if we have any more swag, but I know that that's always a welcome thing where we actually do. Hey, tell me a mom joke. And
it's better when they tell us the joke.
That's true.
We're not that good.
So we're actually, I forgot the reverse is that we are actually filling our toolkit with mom jokes that the kids come. So I appreciated us doing that a couple of years ago. When was that? We started that a couple of years ago. If we do have swag, I don't know if we do. But I know like the community appreciates it, and it's just good to be in the community if we can let us know. And I think that we were trying to staff it up with board members last time.
To the whole board.
Yeah.
I mean, but there are two overlapping events. I noticed some of our fall festivals are overlapping, but I think it's important that that everyone knows about it.
Yeah. And it's fun, I promise.
I believe you.
All right, thank you, Kirby Gonzalez.
I don't have any committee updates this evening, but I did want to bring up a couple of things. One being with the Fall Festival, another piece of that is I'd asked for, as all of our PTOs are getting ready and everyone's getting ready, and there's election times too, that that our guidance went out to PTOs, and if we could have that too, just so everybody's aware before the events happen, because I know in the past we didn't always have maybe consistency or people weren't aware. That would be great. And then I think probably we should send out a communication. I know it came out to us, I think, in your update of when the fall festivals were, but maybe if we talk, look at that in terms of when board trustees are available, if others want to come and give away swag to kids. We do always have really good swag. Okay. And then the other piece is if our staff could just maybe follow up with the gentleman that came. I think our cards, when they give their information from Sac Valley Charter. Okay, perfect. Thank you. The other piece was, I know we have exit surveys that we've done with our staff before, and I just wanted to make sure to call that out for staff that we're approving here are classified, certificated, that those continue, and we make sure that we hear from them if they're leaving and why. And then the 2x2 piece, I I had brought up in a city school 2x2, it wasn't agendized, but the idea of you just planting a seed of could a fence be extended a little bit around, specifically it's Bridgeway Island, because our other schools, the fences are, this is not our property, unlike other schools, but I think maybe that would be important to call out, and then we can have our staff talk with the PTO to hear the proposal as well, and so we can have conversations about that moving forward and in future meeting. And then, yeah, thank you for all of the staff for committing to the PD, for all the work that goes into the PD, and then, of course, for all of our families, too, who are juggling childcare and work so that that can happen. And I really appreciate all of that work. I did get to, just thinking of taking off work, get to go on a field trip with my daughter's class. And it's always so much fun to get to go on a field trip and step outside of the school. And I want to thank all of the teachers, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers making the food to make those experiences happen where we can take kids out, because I know that it's additional layer of work and time. And so I thank them for that. And those are all of my pieces then. And truly, yes, condolences to Tim Hall's family, to everyone, all of his colleagues, and to our city, because all of our public safety we rely on all the time as a school district and just as community members as well. And it's a big loss. And I want to acknowledge that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Dottie.
Yeah, to piggyback up on that, Dr. Hildreth, you said that the flags are flying at half-staff for Tim Hall. Are we going to leave those up for the rest of the week or for?
Yes, we're following the lead of the city.
Okay.
And I believe they're flying them at half-staff until the services on October 8th.
Oh, okay, good, thank you. And then also to piggyback on the Sac Valley Charter, the gentleman said that there is no more Zoom or online presence of those board meetings. Can we make sure and reach up? Because that's something that I think, especially as many of their student parents groups are from Elk Grove and from surrounding areas, that it's really hard for them to get to one location. So it's important to have an ability to view their board meetings. That's really important. So the other thing was I went to the Mediterranean Food Festival this weekend, and I got to see the syncopating sea monkeys, and they are absolutely a delight. They're so great. And man, the food was out of this world. And they had everything there from, goats that you could have your kids come in and pet and feed and then get henna tattoos and then just absolutely stuff your face with gyros or kebabs or whatever. It was absolutely wonderful. And it was packed. It was absolutely packed. So it was a great event. And then I just wanted to comment about the public commenter about First Amendment. And one thing that I'd like to say about that is that First Amendment goes both ways. Absolutely, she has the right to come up here and say her point. But I also have the right to say my point as well. And my personal perspective on that is when you're advocating a position, there's a cardinal rule that you never break. And that is you never alienate, offend, or piss off the people you're trying to persuade. And as a lobbyist, I can tell you, I've broken that rule before. And the person that was advocating has done that. And the problem then is it deteriorates relationships that took a decade or more to build, from Don Stauffer to Doug Knepp. That's a problem. And so it's not just me. I'm going to be leaving the board. There's other people watching that are in the audience now who are going to be coming onto the board. And they get to see what is transpiring. And it just sounds like somebody who's advocating for the sake of advocating and to hear the sound of their own voice, And that's not beneficial to anybody. So relationships are the number one rule when it comes to politics and when it comes to governance and advocating a point of view. And it's something that I've had to learn over my 30-year career in politics. So I just like to share that. With that, I'm done.
Thank you very much. So speaking on some of the comments that were made earlier, one was in regards to buildings with classrooms and interruptions that are happening. Can we look into that and see what exactly is going on? I have an idea in my head based off of some grounds that I've seen, and I think I know what's going on with like the resources or whoever it is, because the location of where they do their services is in between classrooms, and so there's really no way to get in other than through the classroom. So if we can find either, I mean, I don't know, an alternative location, I know some of these places have just been built, another way to get in, just something, perhaps when there's like, maybe when the classroom is doing PE, or they're out for recess, I don't know, some kind of maneuvering where it's not being a class disruption. If we can look into that, I would appreciate it. There was also brought up like the parent nights and engagements for getting the community engaged and finding out. Let's go ahead and start seeing when we can get those starting to get scheduled at certain sites, and at if they can't make it to a certain site, perhaps having a town hall virtual, and if that's not available, having maybe one during the day, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. And this is to help all of our parents and on different days, so that way we're making ourselves accessible, right? We said we were going to do that. There's also, I've seen that we've been invited to a few festivals with the city, or not the city, but throughout the city. I like how some of our, they've reached out to certain schools such as Elkhorn. That is exactly what I was talking about when I said, go to where the people are and start showcasing yourself. That's what I meant. Let's start doing that as well. Like, what do we, even if it's having some type of pamphlet of things that are to come, and want to, hey, we're going to have a discussion on these days, like front load it, let them know when they're kind of going to happen so that they're aware, even if it's a small flyer, so they can put on their refrigerator or wherever it is that they put their notices so that they are aware. Let's start being a little bit more proactive in that sense, because I don't want it to appear as though we're not. I know there's a lot of stuff that was going on, but now let's start getting in. Okay, so that's one thing. The other is this Monday, there's the 2024 Excellence in Education Awards on September 30th. I will be going and definitely, oh yay, you're gonna be there too. Okay, so a few of us will be there and acknowledging those that are within our district with on pretty much excellence in their education. So that's that. For the most part. I do want to say this, I wanted to say this morning, but it wasn't this morning. It was literally minutes ago when we heard that poem. You guys have no idea. I mean, maybe you do, or maybe you don't, I don't know. But for me, that resonated so much. I can't tell you how often I get, what? You're Mexican? What? You speak Spanish? Since I was a little girl. And that does something to you. When your own people, and I put quotes around that because I'm like, I don't know how to describe it, they don't accept you. I've totally watched the Selena movie, and I'd be like, the father would be like, we gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans. We gotta be more Americans than the Americans. We gotta know about Oprah and Christina. We gotta know, like, that whole scene is legit, like, how it is. And I had to let you all know out there, we come in so many shades. We have freckles, we have red hair, we have blonde hair, we have blue eyes, we have light skin, we have dark skin, we are short, we are tall, we speak Spanish, we speak English, we speak Spanglish, and I kid you not, like there are literally moments where I'm like, oh my God, ¿cómo se dice esa palabra? And I'm like, how do you say that word? And I know it in Spanish, but I don't know how to say it in English. And then there's words that I only know in English and I don't know how to say it in Spanish. Sometimes it's a show in here, and I swear there's a lot of voices that speak multiple. They're like talking to themselves sometimes, and it's really awful because I really have a hard time staying focused when I'm in one. I have to really engage and make sure that I'm hearing what is being said. So that poem, I want that poem. I want her to, I don't know, I want it framed and whatnot. I'm being serious, mijita. I really seriously want that because that was beautiful. And I actually got teary-eyed, and I don't like showing my emotions too much, so I just checked that real quick. And but in all reality, seeing that this is Latino or Hispanic Heritage Month, understand that Hispanic Heritage Month doesn't mean Mexican culture. We have Chileans, we have those from Uruguay, Guatemala, El Salvador, Peru, Honduras. I mean, I can go on and on, Brazil. And to understand that if you didn't know, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. They don't even speak Spanish. So understand that there is a plethora of different cultures all throughout, and we really are different. We are different. We are literally a rainbow. And my poor boy, as my dad would call him, transparente, which means transparent, because he is the lightest one of all of his grandchildren. And as much as he says that with love, and that would be my father who's saying that, and my dad would say, that's also my tesoro, that's my treasure. It hurts when you see others take that name or look at a child and say, you're not enough because you don't fit the stereotype of what a Latino should be. I'm Latina. I'm a Mexican American. I have blonde hair. I was born with blonde hair. I was born with colored eyes. I have fair skin. I have freckles. I am different than the typical Mexicana. And both of my parents come from Mexico. My mom's not born in Mexico, but my father was. My mother is second generation, born here. And for that reason, I say that because I really want to educate individuals that we need to be mindful of the terms that we are using with individuals, regardless of we are African American, Black, if you don't want to be, you're like, I'm not African American, I'm Black. Okay, I am part of the LGBTQ community. All of our words, regardless of where we're from, we just need to be very mindful of how we are saying it and when we talk to individuals. And I say that out of love because I do believe that a lot of us, sometimes we don't realize the words that we're saying can be hurtful. And some of us do, and we use it, but I just want us to, moving forward, we can start working on that restorativeness and begin to work in that positive direction to change things and change the mindset. So more to come, and that's also with safety and goodness gracious, I'm already over 10. So I apologize. Do I have motion to move for like a few more minutes? Because I motion a second, and all in favor? Woohoo! Okay, so on that note, I am done with my soapbox. And so moving on, future board agenda items. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for October 10th, 2024. and we will have a budget stabilization plan update to be determined. So any other questions?
Oh, right.
I only say that because you number.
Okay, so we'll
When
make
is
sure
the
to. Do you guys know when the next 2x2 is for the city? No, neither am I. So that's why I was like, I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm saying, there may not be one before the next
Election?
reorganization.
Oh, okay. Okay, well,
Kids are needing to get back to the main campus for after-school sports, that, is there anything that we can just begin a conversation
should we
with the
be
city
doing
for?
should we go to a city council meeting and do a public comment on via? All right. Do we know when the next city council meeting is?
I don't know if that's the process. Well, I will look.
I don't know, I'm just saying, if we want to make it
Look
urgent.
at staff direction about how to proceed.
Wednesday, I think.
Okay, so
And
we'll,
I think I just pulled up the last 2x2 meeting was in August, so I'm assuming the next one will be either in October or November.
Okay.
Because they're usually like every
2
2
months.
months or so.
okay, so if we can get that scheduled and have that on there as a topic of discussion, otherwise, it looks like we'll be going to city council and make a public comment. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. Or maybe I'm not. All right, on that note, y'all have a good rest of your day. Okay, have the rest of your night. I apologize.
Not a lot to do anymore, but go to bed.
Go to bed, go to sleep.